What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Fem Orochimaru is Naruto's mother Harem? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Haru, honey, it's time to wake up. You're going to be late for the academy. Orochimaru said as he gently shook his daughter awake. Haru rubbed her eyes and yawned. Good morning daddy? Haru said as she smiled at her father Orochimaru of the Sannin, a loyal ninja of Konohagakure no Sato. Who seemed as the next in line to take the mantle of Hokage from the third, and becoming the Godem Hokage. Orochimaru smiled at his daughter as he told Haru to get ready for the academy while he goes and wakes her brother. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze Chimate Kina Habi. Orochimaru could only smile in how his life changed for the better. After that night all those 10 years ago, when his daughter Haru was abandoned by the Dursleys in the most dangerous alley in the village. Flashback. T&I apartment's interrogation room. Why are you two doing in our village? A deep, imposing voice called out from the interrogator. He was wearing the Steiner uniform of a Jonin. He had very pale skin, golden eyes with slitted pupils, purple markings around his eyes and fang-like teeth. He also has pronounced cheekbones and straight waist-length black hair with some locks covering and framing his face or to his shoulders. What caught the Dursley family's attention, however, were his snake eyes. Listen here you freak. Vernon began, but trailed off as he saw the man pull out kunai knife with his snake-like tongue. Scaring and disgusting the Dursleys as Orochimaru got into a fighting stance. Who is that child? Orochimaru said getting ready to attack. Sophia Potter. Our niece. Lily and James Potter are her parents and abandoned her at our doorstep asking us to take care of the child, but we don't want to do anything with this little freak. Petunia stammered, and the Orochimaru's eyes widened and he turned his head towards the sleeping child. You know, you two just broke one of the major laws of this village, is to never abandon a child, and by breaking this law, mean death. You two will be executed this tomorrow morning, Orochimaru said as he carried the young child out of the interrogation room. While walking through the T&I department, Orochimaru smiled while looking down at the sleeping baby in his arms. Fate has been cruel to you, young Sophia. Orochimaru spoke, cradling the young child in his arms. When he spoke, little Sophia opened her eyes and Orochimaru's eyes widened as he stared into the emerald green eyes. I never thought of adopting a child, but both my apprentice and Kabuto are fully grown and I can tell you will do great things, Sophia. No, my dear Haru, you do something great, I know it. Haru reached up with her stubby arms and, with a giggle, tugged on Orochimaru's hair. Orochimaru smiled once more. Fate, and has brought me a daughter, Orochimaru said, before vanishing in a blur with Haru still in his arms. End flashback. Haru Pav. I was getting dressed when I heard my brother Naruto scream in fear. I'm guessing dad used his shadow snakes on him again, I thought as I heard a familiar hissing sound. I turned to the corner in my room to see my favorite snake, or my first ever pet snake, waking up. Ankoku was a black mamba. Unlike the other black mambas, Ankoku was weighing in at 550 pounds, just like an anaconda. Ankoku's length to weight ratio was maybe up 65 feet. Ankoku was given to me as a birthday gift on my 6th birthday from my father, who discovered him almost being beaten to death by a group of villagers who did not appreciate the serpents. Good morning, my lady. Ankoku hiss. Good morning, Ankoku. I hissed back as I walked over to Ankoku and stroked his beautiful black scales. I smiled as Ankoku purred to my touch. I've been able to talk to snakes for a while now and my father agrees that it was a unique technique. I befriended the snakes in the force of death. And I was able to summon them and use them in my battles. I'm not a graduated genin yet, but my father took me and my brother out to do some simple C.B. A ranked missions against the Hokage's wishes. My father told us, I will not have my children being weak and insignificant. And he most likely pointed me out and said, that I will not have a daughter who's a fangirl. I smiled at that memory. I looked at Ankoku, who turned into the size of a normal king cobra who slithered up my arm. I smiled once more as I headed out of my room. But only to stop and looked at the mirror. I look like a carbon copy of my father, but as a girl. I was wearing a white battle top kimono with a red high-waist skirt along with black legging stockings and my black shinobi sandals. I was also wearing a black scarf with a blood pattern trickled on the bottom along with my scarf. That was wrapped around my neck. Along with Ankoku, who was wrapped around my neck as well. I have my father's long black raven hair, his pale skin and the snake-like eyes with the purple markings. But my eyes are an emerald green than the golden color that he has. But there's a slight little difference between me and my father. On the upper right part of my forehead there is a scar shaped like a lightning bolt. I never really liked the scar, so I hide it under my bangs. I know that I am blood adopted to my father. He told me when I was only 7 years old, he told me that my aunt and uncle abandoned me in an alley in the village. They didn't wanted me, they hated me, so they called me a freak. What really broke my heart is that my biological parents abandoned me to them. I never knew why, but I guess I should thank them 'cause of that action that they have caused. I have a family who truly loves me. I have a father who loves me with all his heart. I have a brother who's very careful and very protective, well, 2 brothers, to be exact, and a big sister who's very sadistic when it comes to someone hurting her precious little sister. I sighed as I continued walking as to the dining room, only to be surprised when everyone in my small family yelled, "Surprise, happy birthday, Haru." I smiled, letting a few tears of happiness run down my cheeks. There was my father, who is dressed in the Godem Hokage robes. My big sister Anko was wearing a fitted mesh bodysuit that covers her from her neck down to her thighs. Over this, she typically wears a tan overcoat with a purple inseam and a pocket on each side, a dark orange mini skirt, a dark blue belt, and pale gray shin guards. In addition to the typical forehead protector, she also wears a small pendant that looks like a snake fang and a wristwatch. My older brother Kabuto was wearing a dark purple shirt with a high collar, a white undershirt, and dark purple pants with a white cloth waistband. He wearing also dark purple fingerless gloves with armored plates on the back of the hand and a blue forehead protector. Along with a white lab coat, 'cause he works in the hospital now. And my brother Naruto, he was wearing a darker version of the standard uniform of the intelligence division, along with a black trench coat and gloves. Just like Ibiki Morino, Naruto no longer wearing the orange jumpsuit he used to wear. I smiled and hugged my family as we all laughing and smiling. What could go wrong? Time skip. Hokage office. Orochimaru Pav. I was working on my paperwork when an owl came flying into my office. The only time an owl came into my office was when I got a letter from a place called Gringotts from one Ragnarok Goblin King. I remember what that letter had said, and I couldn't be happier that Haru is getting what truly belongs to her from that so-called family. Mimi flashback. Dear Orochimaru Chimate Takina Habi. My name is Ragnarok Goblin King of Gringotts. I am writing you this letter to tell you that your daughter Haru Chimate Takina Habi, formerly known as Sophia Potter, has gained a large amount of her inheritance, along with unknown inheritance from her late family members. Your daughter is the heiress to the Potter family fortune, but due to the fact that her parents abandoned her, your daughter is now emancipated to take the fortune along with her grandparents' manors, and your name has also been well known around in the wizarding world, which you are now labeled as a pureblood wizard, and you have a large amount of money in this world as well. Name: Sophia Janice Potter Peveril, now known as Haru Chimate Takina Habi. Former father's name: James Potter, new father Orochimaru Chimate Takina Habi. Former mother's name: Lily Evans Potter. Blood status: pure blood. The heiress of noble family of Peveril, by great-great-great-great-grandfather side. The heiress of the noble family of Gryffindor, by great-great-great-great-grandmother side. The heiress of noble family of Slytherin, by great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather side. The heiress of noble family of Potter, by Charles Potter grandfather side. The heiress of noble family of Black, by Sirius Black godfather. The heiress of noble family of Chimate Takina Habi, by father Orochimaru Chimate Takina Habi. Blood relatives: James Potter, Lily Evans Potter, Jacob James Potter, Orochimaru Chimate Takina Habi, Anko Mitarashi Chimate Takina Habi, Kabuto Yakushi Chimate Takina Habi, and Naruto Uzumaki Chimate Takina Habi. Vaults: 111 of the Peverils, 225 of the Gryffindors, 313 of the Slytherins, 686 of the Potters, 667 of the Potters, 669 of the Potters. Total amount: 897, 56,356 galleons. Approximately 500 million galleons, 300 million sickles, and 100,000 nuts in money. A total of 4,000 books, and 3,000 heirlooms. I hope your daughter will enjoy what her family left behind for her. Sincerely, Ragnuk Goblin King. End mini flashback. I sighed as the owl dropped the letter on my disc and flew off. Yuki, can you get someone to call in my daughter to my office please? I said the intercom, asking my assistant. Right away Hokage-sama, Yuki said. Time skip. Third POV. Haru was standing in front her father's desk along with her sibling Anko, Kabuto, and Naruto were also called into the office as Orochimaru explained why did he call them in Toy's office and handed the letter to Haru. Opening the letter very curiously as Haru began to read out loud. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster. Albus Dumbledore. Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Sork, CHF. Warlock. Supreme Mugwump, International Confed, of Wizards. Dear Ms. Haru Chimade Takina Habi. We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on the 1st of September. We await your owl by no later than the 31st of July. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall Sig. Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. Second page. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First-year students will require 1. 3 sets of plain work robes, black. 2. 1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear. 3. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. 4. 1 winter cloak, black, with silver fastenings. Please note that all pupils' clothes should carry name tags. Course books. All students should have a copy of each of the following. The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1. By Miranda Goshawk. A History of Magic. By Bathilda Bagshot. Magical Theory. By Adalbert Waffling. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration. By Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi. By Felida Spore. Magical Drafts and Potions. By Arsenius Jigger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. By Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces. A Guide to Self-Protection. By Quentin Trimble. Other equipment. 1 wand. 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2. 1 set glass or crystal phials. 1 telescope. 1 set brass scales. Students may also bring, if they desire, an owl or a cat or a toad. Parents are reminded that first years are not allowed their own broomstick. Yours sincerely, Lucinda Thompsonical Pocus, Chief Attendant of Witchcraft Provisions. It was a total shock to all of them as Orochimaru cleared his throat and said, Haru, you'll be given a Hite 8 in the rank of an Anbu, along with the snake mask. In return, I'm assigning you to a long-term S-ranked mission to infiltrate this, Hogwarts. You are also to report the attitudes of the people of Hogwarts and if they pose a threat to the elemental nations. Also, this will be a great opportunity for you to meet your godfathers who believed to be in Europe in the place called London, still they waiting for you at this place called Diagon Alley. Orochimaru said, holding out the Hite 8 and the Anbu mask to Haru, who grabbed it and tied it around her neck while putting on her Anbu mask. I will not fail, father. Haru said, determination shining in her eyes. It was the day for me to head to Hogwarts and meet my 2 godfathers in Diagon Alley. I was dressed in my new outfit that my big sister Anko had gotten for me. The upper body featured a hood with the center shaped to resemble an eagle's beak, which was connected to the robes, with the torso bearing an open collar. The lower part of the robes was double-layered, with the back of the robes trailing down to be longer than the front. Around the waist was a long red sash with pouches attached to a belt, holding smoke bombs, bullets, poison and medicine vials. The belt also held together with an ornate the hidden leaf insignia, with scabbards holding throwing knives flanking it. The robes featured a leather spalder where a cape was attached, draped over and around my left arm and shoulder. As my Anbu mask was resting on my right hip, I was standing in front of the main gate with my 2 puppets. One of my puppets was called Vincent. He looked physically in his late 20s and stands roughly 6 feet tall. He has crimson eyes and long black hair. He wears a red bandana with his fringe emerging over it. Vincent's most distinctive feature is his red cloak, held in place over his shoulders and lower face by several buckles. Underneath his cape, Vincent's attire is black leather with several straps and buckles. Vincent wears a holster for his gun strapped to his right thigh and pointed golden sabadons on his feet. He wears a golden gauntlet on his left arm with a Hite 8 tied over his left arm. While my other puppet was called Sephiroth, he was a tall man with a muscular build. He wears a long black coat with silver pauldrons, black boots, and black trousers. The top of his coat is open to reveal his chest, with his leather soldier suspenders crossed over it. Sephiroth's long silver hair has bangs parted to either side of his face. Sephiroth has green cat-like eyes and wields the Masamune, a 7-foot-long katana he is rarely seen without. His battle stance with the sword is to hold it over his left shoulder with the blade curving downward. Sephiroth usually wields the Masamune two-handed. In later appearances, a single black wing emerges from his right shoulder. Sephiroth is left-handed but has been depicted wielding his sword in his right hand. The Hite 8 was tied around his forehead. These two puppets I made with one of my boyfriends. Yes, I may be 11 years old but now I'm labeled as an adult. So I can date whoever I want. To tell you the truth, I've been never a child since my father took me out on my first mission, where I had to make my first kill at the age of 5 along with Naruto. And when I was the age of 7, my father took me to meet a mercenary group called the Akatsuki, the New Dawn, I think they were called that. After my first meeting with them, all male members fell in love with me. It was weird having all 9 male of Akatsuki fall in love with me and wanted to date me. To my father's ire, I smiled at that memory as my family and a group of my friends were at the gate wanting to wish me luck as my father handed me a scroll along with 2 other objects. One was a small crystal butterfly. My father had told me was a portkey that would take me to Diagon Alley or Gringotts to meet my godfathers who were waiting for me there. And the other was a large bird cage. I don't know what's inside, but I'm guessing it has to do with one of the messenger hawks we have. I don't know, I'll have to look into it later once I get to my godfather's house. With a smile, I looked around to see if they'll show up. They promised me that they would. I thought as I felt like was about to cry only for me to tackled to the ground by Toby. No, don't go, Haru-chan. Toby will be sad, Toby said while hugging me while anime crying. Only for all of you's heard someone yell, Samahata. Slow down, girl. We all turned to see it was Kisame Hoshigaki being dragged along by his sword throughout the village, stopping at the main gate with the rest of the male members of Akatsuki following close behind. Samahata somehow managed to push Toby off me while licking me on my cheek. I began to giggle. Samahata, haha please. Haha. Ahaha, that tickles, I said in between giggles. As the next thing I knew, I'm being hugged by all 9 male members of Akatsuki. To my father's ire, each member was telling me to be careful and to write to them every day. I smiled as I hugged everyone one last time and said my goodbyes as I sealed everything I had in a sealing scroll as I pulled up my hood and put on my Anbu mask and held onto the portkey along with my 2 puppets. Serenity, I said as the portkey took me and my puppets to Diagon Alley. I looked around, seeing a lot of people looking at us in shock or fear. I'm guessing they never saw ninjas before, I thought as I began to walk toward the building that had the word Gringotts on it, followed closely by my 2 puppets. I can't wait to meet my godfathers, I thought as I kept walking. Third POV. Sirius Black and Remus Lupin were waiting in front of Gringotts, waiting to see their beloved goddaughter Sophia, or better known as Haru Chimate Takina Habi, daughter of Orochimaru Chimate Takina Habi, the Godem Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. In other words, everyone thinks that Haru is a princess in that part of the wizarding world in Japan. Both Sirius and Remus were told how life is at the hidden villages and to say they were shocked and scared that their little pup or cub can get herself killed. But that shock was gone when Orochimaru had written to them telling them that Haru wanted to become a powerful kunoichi and the next Snake Sanin, to prove that she is not just a pretty face but a very powerful skilled assassin. Orochimaru even sent them pictures of Haru and when she was a child and a baby too. He even sent a photo album and even some letters that Haru wrote to them when she was only 5 years old, wishing that she can meet them sooner than later. Haru's handwriting was very beautiful and seems like she's been taking calligraphy classes since she can write in every young age. Orochimaru even told them that Haru will be accompanied by her 2 favorite guards named Vincent and Sephiroth. Both will be wearing a Hite 8 on their person. Orochimaru even sent them a picture of the 2 guards so they can identify them with. Also that Haru be wearing a distinctive mask that looks like a snake. Both men jumped a little when they heard an angelic voice say, "Hello Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, my godfathers." Both Sirius and Remus turned around and smiled to see their goddaughter Sophia Janice Potter Peveril, better now known as Haru Chimate Takina Habi. Haru removed her mask and gave both her godfathers a breathtaking smile. "Cub, pup," where both said as Haru was brought into the biggest bear hug she has ever gotten, only making her giggle and smile while hugging her godfathers with a few tears in her eyes. "Oh Haru, we waited so long to meet you." Sirius said. He hugged his beloved goddaughter and smiled at the two men that were her guards, thanking them for keeping his and Remus' little Sophia safe. "Come on Haru, let's go to Black Manor, your room is already set." Sirius said. He held his portkey as everyone, even Haru puppets, took a hold and they were taken to Black Manor. Haru Pav. Once we got to Black Manor, it was located in a mist-covered forest on the outskirts of London. The entire area is margined with ruins and a rubble of stone. Vast expanses of land, outlined by a great quantity of bushes and trees, contain the gargantuan building of the manor. A long stairway leads to the entrance, where a huge fountain is established nearby. The lofty manor has a substantial amount of stories. Each level comprises numerous rooms that are furnished with elegant, luxurious furniture and the Black household's possessions and belongings. It was truly beautiful. My godfathers had told me a lot about the wizarding world and what the Black family. The family was known to be dark wizards, so most of the books are not any longer in the bookstores or in the library of Hogwarts. I also have seen a lot of small creatures there called house elves. They clean and cook. I walked into my room and I began to unseal my belongings from the ceiling scroll along with the birdcage and the scroll my father had given me. Getting curious, I pulled off the sheet from the birdcage. I was shocked to see a common black hawk. He was 43 to 53 centimeters, 17 to 21 in long and weighs 930 grams, 33 ounces, on average. He had broad wings, and is mainly black or dark gray. The short tail is black with a single broad white band and a white tip. The bill is black and the legs and cere are yellow. From what I could tell, he was an adult, resemble a zone-tailed hawks, but have fewer white bars on their tail and are larger in size. He was truly beautiful, completely different from the messenger hawk that we normally use. There was even a note from my father saying, "I know you like Black Hawk, so I decided to catch one and get it trained. It took a while to get that thing trained, it even bit me. But it knows its way back to the hidden leaf and 4 talk words, since we had a train mostly like the messenger owls be sent here. Love, Dad." I smiled as I stroked the hawk's black feathers, making him a purr in pleasure, I guess. "You every handsome bird, Kuro," I said as I named my black hawk. I smiled as I sat down at my desk as I pulled out a scroll and began to write in kanji to my father. "Father, what I have seen in Diagon Alley, it is well hidden by a genjutsu that prevents non-magic users from seeing it. There seems to be a rift among the population between purebloods, families of only magic users, and others. Others include half-bloods, one born of a pureblood and muggle-born. From what I have learned from my godfathers, that these purebloods believe themselves superior every other magic user. Why this attitude is allowed to continue when it is obviously detrimental to society is unknown. I hope that my status as a pureblood doesn't make me act like them. I'll write to you soon. I only have a week before I have to attend Hogwarts, and my godfathers say that I will have to meet up with this Ragnarok Goblin King of Gringotts to talk about my inheritance and vaults." Once I was done writing, I bite my thumb and did the hand signs for summoning jutsu. Once I slammed my hand on the desk and yelled out, "Summoning jutsu." A puff of smoke appears. A small purple snake appeared on my desk. "Here, take this to my father," I said as I handed the scroll to the snake. The snake nodded his head and pooped out of existence. I wonder how this Hogwarts is going to be like. I walking along my godfathers as we were going to meet Ragnarok Goblin King of Gringotts today and get my school supplies for Hogwarts. Want to dress in something more comfortable but formal to show that I am a nobility, since technically I am princess, so I decided to wear a kimono of dark magenta color, along with a blue obi, which also has the design of the flower, with ankoku wrapped around my neck. Glares at anyone who looks at me funny. I could feel people looking at me as my 2 puppets walked close behind me and my godfathers, their weapons at the ready. I sighed as we walked into Gringotts. "Hello," I said to catch the goblin's attention. The goblin looked up from his work to look at me. "How may I help you, miss?" the goblin asked. Third POV. Taking a deep breath, Haru said, "I wish to make a blood test in order to know my heritage in this country." "Very well, I shall prepare everything for the test if you would just take a seat and wait." The goblin replied and left to prepare everything. Haru, serious, and Remus waited only a few minutes when the goblin returned with a piece of parchment and a dagger. "Please, drop 3 drops of blood onto the parchment," the goblin told Haru, handing the dagger. Haru did as he was told. A moment later, writing formed onto the parchment revealing Haru's heritage. Name: Sophia Janice Potter Peveril, now known as Haru Chime Takina Habi. Former father's name: James Potter, new father Orochimaru Chime Takina Habi. Former mother's name: Lily Evans Potter. Blood status: pure blood. The heiress of noble family of Peveril, by great-great-great-great-grandfather side. The heiress of the noble family of Gryffindor, by great-great-great-great-grandmother side. The heiress of noble family of Slytherin, by great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather side. The heiress of noble family of Potter, by Charles Potter grandfather side. The heiress of noble family of Black, by Sirius Black godfather. The heiress of noble family of Chime Takina Habi, by father Orochimaru Chime Takina Habi. Blood relatives: James Potter, Lily Evans Potter, Jacob James Potter, Orochimaru Chime Takina Habi, Anko Mitarashi Chime Takina Habi, Kabuto Yakushi Chime Takina Habi, and Naruto Uzumaki Chime Takina Habi. Vaults: 111 of the Peverils, 225 of the Gryffindors, 313 of the Slytherins, 686 of the Potters, 667 of the Potters, 669 of the Potters. Total amount: 897, 56,356 galleons. "Oh, my," the goblin exclaimed, seeing her heritage. Haru had almost forgotten about the goblin till now. "You are Lady Peveril Chime Takina Habi, the last heir of the most ancient family of Peverils, and new heir to the powerful family of Chime Takina Habi." Hearing the goblin's voice, every goblin looked at their way. The goblin hurried to a more older-looking goblin and whispered something to him. Listening to the younger goblin, the older goblin rushed to Haru's side. "Lady Peveril Chime Takina Habi, welcome to Gringotts. It is a pleasure to attend to the heiress of one of the most ancient houses and the princess of the Land of Fire. I am Malkoth. Allow me to assist you," the older goblin said. "Yes, I would like to change who my magical guardian is. I have feeling that said person will be trying to take money out of my vaults. Also, is there a way to keep the Potters away from these vaults? I don't want them stealing what's not theirs, and I also wish to see these vaults. And do you have my family reigns? And I'll be attending Hogwarts this year. Also, I wish to withdraw some money from the Peveril's vault if I can," Haru told Malkoth with an air of confidence. "Everything will be done according to your wish. A letter shall be sent to the school as well. And as for the Peveril's vault, it has been sealed for many centuries as there was no one to claim to it. I shall make a key for you immediately after unsealing it and bring it to you personally, and I'll be showing your other vaults as well, my Lady Peveril Chime Takina Habi," said Malkoth with a little bow. "Thank you, Malkoth," Haru said with a smile, as Malkoth ran off to make the key and get the family's reins. Time skip a few minutes. "My Lady Peveril Chime Takina Habi, you need to place your hand in this ball," Malkoth said, gesturing to a glass ball that he pulled out of one of his drawers and set it on the table in front of her. Haru nodded and sat up before reaching her hand into the ball and pulled out several rings that had appeared in her hand. There was a red and gold one, a silver and green one, a black and silver one, a silver ring with a blue diamond, a silver ring with an ebony gem, a silver ring with a purple gem, and the last ring was silver with a black gem. There you have the Gryffindor ring, the Slytherin ring, the Black Air ring, the Peveril ring, the Potter ring, the Chime Takina Habi ring. You can place all but one ring on one finger and they will mold into one ring for you if you like," Malkoth said. Haru nodded her head as she watched as all the rings molded into one ring, combining the crests together to form one big crest in the middle of the multicolored gem, with a black snake in the middle of the gem. "Now, my Lady Peveril Chime Takina Habi, you requested to see the other vaults," Malkoth said as Haru nodded. "Yes, I would like to see them, please." Time skip few more minutes to the last vaults. "Here we are, Vault 799. Malkoth said as they all got out of the cart and Haru used her new key to unlock the door. This was connected to the main Potter vault, but only she could enter and exit it since the keys were different. The lock clicked, and once the doors opened, inside revealed inside of the vault. It had probably 2/3 of the Potter family fortune, and it was a massive one, a large shelf of books, multiple gold and silver heirlooms, jewels, and even an unfamiliar trunk with the Potter family crest on it, which Haru never seen before. Malkuth had given her a list of all what her father wanted brought into her vault, from her family, but looking over the list Haru noticed that the trunk wasn't on the list. "What is that?" Haru asked as she pointed at the trunk. "Oh, that?" Malkuth looked at it. "That's actually an old trunk that belonged to Lady Doria Potter, your grandmother. Your biological father hasn't touched it and your mother, well, wants nothing out of it. So Father Orochimaru Chimei Takina Habi asked for it, seeing it belonged to your grandmother. He wants you to have it," Malkuth said. "Have they ever looked inside?" Malkuth shook their heads. "Guess there's a time for anything. I wonder why Dad wanted me to have it," thought Haru. Haru quickly walked over to the trunk, and used her magic or chakra, to unlock the top, and opened it. Oh wow, it was full of dresses and shoes, but they all looked brand new. "Oh, grandmother," Haru thought with a smile as she closed the trunk. Serious, do you think I could take this trunk with me?" Haru asked with a light pink blush on her cheek. "Oh, pup, of course, we can take the trunk, dear." With the wave of his wand the trunk shrunk to the size of a matchbox. "And place it in his jacket pocket." "Fantastic job, Malkuth." The goblin smiled and bowed slightly. "It is a pleasure, Lady Peveril Chimei Takina Habi. It's not too often we meet a promising young witch like you every day. Most girls your age would take this money and blow it." "Yes, I think it is, but let me make a slight withdrawal." "Of course." Haru was given a pouch and filled it with galleons and sickles. "Thank you for your time." She shook his hands and they left the vault. Haru felt very pleased. Once they made it back towards the lobby, Malkuth shook her and Godfather's hands before they left the bank. "Haru Pav. Okay Haru, we're going to see and getting you, your wand," Remus said as we walked to a shop called Ollivander's Fine Wands. We stepped inside the shop as I took a look around curiously. It felt as if I stepped into a strict library. The shop consisted of a waiting area and shelves upon shelves of black boxes stacked into the back of the shop. I turned to see silver-haired man, Ollivander. "Hello, Ollivander, we here to get our goddaughter her wand," Remus said as he placed hand my shoulders. "Ah yes, so this Lady Haru Peveril Chimei Takina Habi, I see. Well then, let's see if I have a perfect match for you." The aged man spoke as he walked into the back of the shop and gathered boxes and placing them on the counter. "Maple, unicorn hair, 12 inches. Give it a wave to try it out," Ollivander requested as he handed me the maple wood wand. I gave the wand a half wave only for it to be snatched away by the old man. "No, apparently not. Try this one. Ebony, dragon heartstring and 11 inches long." And so it went. I tried wand after wand as a pile began to stack up on the counter. Ollivander certainly didn't mind as he grew more and more excited as he handed me wand after wand to try. I giggled when I saw the shocked looks of my godfathers as Ankoku hissed in my ear making giggle some more. Eventually, after what felt like my 30th wand, Ollivander frowned thoughtfully. It seems you require a more unusual wand, Lady Peveril Chimei Takina Habi," the wand maker said as he went to the back of the shop and brought out 5 older-looking boxes. "You see, these wands are much more unusual than the ones I have at the front of the shop. Most wizards from the British Isles are more attuned with animals native to the country, such as unicorn hairs, dragon heartstring, and phoenix feathers." He placed the boxes on the desk as he spoke. "These wands, however, have cores that are not from Britain. I made these in my youth as I traveled to complete my apprenticeship under other wand makers of many countries. America, Africa, China, Japan, and Russia. Each one wand best represents a region. Let's see if one of them chooses you, shall we?" I nodded and turned to look at the Japanese wand. If my suspicions were correct that Konohagakure no Sato originated in place called Japan, then most likely wand would be. I opened the old box and picked up the wand. It was the length of a ruler and was a reddish-brown. Designs seemed to be etched into the wand to look like sakura petals. My examination of the wand was cut short as blood sakura petals began falling around me as warmth spread across my arm. It was like time. I held on to the kusanagi. Sakura wood with the fang of a snake yokai, 12 inches long. This is one of the first wands I made after achieving master status in wand crafting, Lady Peveril Chimei Takina Habi. I expect great things from you. whether they be good or bad. I nodded and paid 12 galleons for the wand before exiting the store. Third POV. Stepping into Madame Malkin's, watching Haru's eyes roam around the shop, even trying to look in the back while Madame Malkin's attention was on her godfathers. Can I help you? Madame Malkin asked, turning to Remus and Sirius. Yes, we're here to have our goddaughter Lady Haru Peverol Chime Hubby to have full wardrobe, formal and informal, as well as his usual school uniform, Sirius stated curtly, wasting no time. Colors? Madame Malkin immediately asked, bringing out a notepad from her apron and gazing at him, all professional. Nothing gaudy, blues, greens, blacks. Perhaps some blood red and neutral colors, Remus replied tersely. How long will it take? 5 hours at least, Madame Malkin answered, already knowing what his answer would be. He had done this for himself just a fortnight ago. Unacceptable. Put it on rush order, Sirius demanded. I will add 10% of the total price if you can have it done within 2 hours. Very well, consider it done. Malkin agreed immediately. Good. I would like the same charms I had placed on my own if there is enough time before I collect them. Start with the school uniform first, Sirius stated. Step up, Lady Peverol Chime Hubby. She said kindly, gesturing towards the little stool. Haru did what she was told while Ankoku was resting on Remus's shoulder. She had making it easier to do her work, still listening intently for this wizard's answer. As well as a new winter set, cloak, hat, gloves, scarf. The whole shebang, right away, she said. That's you done. Would you like something to drink while you wait? We will be back in 2 hours, Sirius informed her, silently gesturing to Haru to move. Haru did, and they left the shop just as quietly as they came, the door closing with a silent click. What charms? Haru questioned curiously as Ankoku was warped around her neck once more and her puppets following close behind them. Charms that allow the outfits to expand both in height and around the middle, Remus told her wryly. Then there's those that protect you from potion spills and the essential ones that prevents your clothes from catching fire and such. He didn't want to name them all, he would be there all day. Crossing over the way and into a side alley, he entered their next destination. Can I help you? A bored monotone voice asked without even looking up at his customers as he thumbed through the newspaper he was reading. You can start by paying attention, unless you wish me to take my business elsewhere. Sirius barked at the wizard, glaring at him. To him this wizard was a bloody idiot. Right. How can I help you? The wizard, David, stuttered, struck dumb by Sirius, Remus and Haru, only to freeze when he saw the two dangerous men standing behind the girl. Go pick a trunk, anyone you like, Haru, Sirius told Haru firmly, moving to the side and remaining there. I would suggest one with safety features, Remus said as he looked at Haru. Let me show you, David replied eagerly, very different from how he had been mere moments ago. Especially now that he knew it would be a big sale, the safety-featured trunks were in the higher-priced range. He got even more hyper when he noticed the ring on Haru's finger showing that of pure blood and nobility family, also showing that she no hold the title lady. Let me show you our best. Haru followed the wizard, and began showing her the one-of-a-kind trunks and explained all the safety features that were on them. How nobody would be able to get into her trunk unless it was her, that her unique magical signature would prevent anyone touching it. What happens if they did try to open it? Haru asked curiously. It depends on what you want on it, Remus informed her with a satisfied lilt to his voice. It could be a simple spell to zap them, like a little electric shock, or something that will make sure you know they've been trying to enter your trunk, like turning them blue or red, even just their hands. There are a lot of protective measures out there. I have a magazine you can choose from the list of spells, David explained, excited. This was the most expensive trunk in the shop. If he sold it, his boss was going to be impressed. He had been trying to sell it for years. But I must inform you, since it's going to be in a school, the more lethal charms cannot be used. It was a public setting, so it was illegal to put lethal works on a trunk. Do you like it? Both Remus and Sirius asked, looking at Haru. Haru just smiled and nodded. We'll take it, said Sirius. I'll go and put the charms on it, David said quickly, levitating the trunk over to his workroom and began layering the spells. Go collect your initial plates, pup, Sirius said, pointing towards the rack filled with gold-plated metal alphabet letters. Haru just nodded and made her way over to the rack and began to pull out the ones she needed, A-H, P, C, T, and of course a H. Place your wand here, run your magic into it. David instructed. Haru removed her wand and did as she was told. The trunk glowed brightly and the wizard nodded, obviously satisfied that it had worked. Once they were done and paid for the trunk, they went to around to get the remaining of Haru's school supplies. Time skipped back to Black Manor. Serious Pav. I smiled in seeing Haru reading her first-year books. I can't believe that James and Lily would abandon Sophia, abandoned to her the Dursleys. We all know that they will hate the poor girl. Remus and I were shocked in what happened that night where James and Lily listened to that old fool Dumbledore. Flashback. We can't. Sirius. We need to prepare Jacob. We need to place all-out focus on him. Both Remus and I looked at them in betrayal and disgust. We couldn't believe this was happening. Where would you sending her away? We all know James has no siblings. No one with half a brain would ever think it would be a good idea to send her to Lily's sister. She hates magic and everything to do with it. Sophia wouldn't grow up happily there. So where do you want to send her? There is nowhere, yelled out Remus. I was mad. My wand was clenched tightly in my hand, my knuckles turning white. Serious, Remus, my boys, I seem to be cutting him off a lot. Don't call us that. They all seemed surprised but wisely didn't comment. Alright, Mr. Black, Mr. Lupin, by giving Sophia to Petunia I could set up blood wards to protect her. It would be foolproof. It's for the best. No, I ground out. Serious, please think about it. It's the best for everyone in the long run. You're being selfish, letting your attachments get in the way, said James. Everyone quickly realized that had been the wrong thing to say. I let out a cold, bitter laugh. Well, seeing that Remus and I are her godfathers, I think I'm entitled to be attached. We'll put her needs first. Seeing as her parents won't, she will not go to Lily's sister. We forbid it. You can't forbid it. You don't have the authority. That lies will the parents and the law. Both Remus and I turned to stalk away. Serious, Remus, that's Lord Black and Lord Lupin to you. We spat viciously. James physically recoiled. You made your decision. You'll live with it. The noble and most ancient House of Black cut all ties to the Potters, Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix. From now on until I decide otherwise we are a neutral party. So mote it be. I, Remus Lupin, noble House of Lupin, cut all ties to the Potters, Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix. From now on until I decide otherwise we are a neutral party. So mote it be. Magic swirled around both Remus and I visibly before pulsing once and dissipating into us. End flashback. Did you check that everything you need is in there? Sirius asked as the house elves were making them breakfast, while Remus himself was making last-minute decisions on which books that Haru can take with her to Hogwarts, and which books to leave. Yes, I did that yesterday, I said, and I'll wear the school uniform before we go because the last thing I want to do is change clothes in a moving train. Said while looking at my godfathers. All right, pup, Sirius said with a nod while the house elf's creature was wrapping up the 2 neat sandwiches for his young mistress so she can snack on later. Don't worry too much about the books, Haru. I told you that Hogwarts library is bigger than you could possibly imagine and the library is open every day. Remus said with a smile. You also told me that the train ride is nearly 7 hours long. But I hope that the books you gave me, Moony and Padfoot, will keep me entertained. I said with smile and see both godfathers almost cry in happiness when I called them by their nicknames. I sighed loudly before finally closing my trunk and moving to sit at the table. I'm ready, Uncle Moony and Padfoot, I said as dressed in school uniform. I already written my report to father about the magical world and all the thing that this world will to keep them hidden from outside world. All right, pup cub, both Sirius and Remus yelled back, buttoning up their robes. Just a second and we'll go. Third POV. A scarlet steam engine was waiting next to a platform packed with people. A sign overhead said Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Smoke from the engine drifted over the heads of the chattering crowd, while cats of every color wound here and there between their legs. Owls hooted to one another in a disgruntled sort of way over the babble and the scraping of heavy trunks. Haru felt as if she had stepped into a dream or very well-made genjutsu. Let's get your trunk and Kuro's cage into the cargo car and find you a compartment, Sirius said, as both Remus and Haru hurried right after him, with her trunk and Kuro's cage floating above Sirius' head. Will there be empty compartments left, Uncle Padfoot? Haru asked, wishing that they would have arrived even earlier. Sirius found a place in the cargo car for Haru's trunk and Kuro's cage, and as soon as he had put it there, he turned to his best friend and goddaughter. The train usually starts filling up from the middle first, Remus explained, pulling Haru gently with him as he and Sirius began walking again. The first and last cars are often the last ones to be filled, so why don't we head to the first car right now and take a look in Haru to you have your money pouch? Remus said as he looked at his goddaughter. Haru smiled and pulled out given a bottomless pouch of galleons that connected directly to the Gryffindor, Slytherin, Black, Peverell, Potter, and the Chimay-Takina Habi vaults. Good, now in you go, said Sirius as he head-guided Haru to an empty compartment. Haru smiled as she went inside. Once setting down, Haru looked out the window. She smiled and waved to her godfathers. Sirius pav. And off she goes, I thought. Feeling suddenly miserable, I could tell Remus feels the same. All he had now was a job that he liked well enough but didn't enjoy. The week we spent with our goddaughter was dream come true. I hope Haru enjoy her time in Hogwarts. Come on Sirius, let's head back, Remus said. I nodded as we both walked towards the apparition point, but only to stop when we heard, Sirius, Remus. We both turned around to see James and Lily walking towards us. I growled in the back of my throat. In seeing them, I could see that Remus feels the same. Potters, I said coldly, making both of them flinch. Sorry, I wish we could stay, but we have somewhere to be, I said coldly as I walked towards the apparition point with Remus following close behind me as we left without letting the Potters say a word. Haru pav. It had taken me slightly over 10 minutes of staring outside through the window before I grew bored of seeing the sceneries flying by. I was petting a sleeping Ankoku who was sleeping on my lap. As I pulled out one of my many books to read, it was only 20 minutes in my reading when the door of my compartment opened, waking Ankoku. I looked up to see standing there was a girl with blonde hair and bright green eyes. She looks like to be of nobility blood. She looks like a pretty girl, and very smart. Hi, do you mind if I sit here? All the rest of the compartments are full, the girl said. I smiled and said, sure. Thank you, my name is Daphne Greengrass, and is that a black mamba? Daphne asked, looking a little scared. Yes, but don't worry, Ankoku won't bite you unless he's threatened. My name is Haru Peverell Chimay-Takina Habi. I'm the daughter of Orochimaru Chimay-Takina Habi, the Godem Hokage of my village. But I think most people may call him a king. As Daphne was about to ask another question when we both hard. Excuse me, sorry to bother you, but can I sit here? Someone said. As we both turned to see a boy, he stood tall and proud with dark hair and crystal blue eyes. He easily placed his large wooden trunk on the rack and brushed off his robes. Ah, Blaze, it's so good to see you, said Daphne as she hugged the boy. Haru, this is Blaze Zabini. Blaze, this is Haru Peverell Chimay-Takina Habi. She's the daughter of Orochimaru Chimay-Takina Habi, the Godem Hokage, from her home. She'll be attending Hogwarts with us with the permission of her father, who is the king of her village in Japan, Daphne said with a smile. After what seemed like 15 minutes of talk, we heard noxious tones say, excuse me. You all are in the compartment I wanted. I turned around to see, curled my lip in distaste in seeing a chubby boy who happens to be my former brother Jacob Potter. I raised an eyebrow coolly and gestured outside the cabin. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that you were blind and didn't notice all the other compartments. I don't know who you are, but I suggest you leave or I won't be responsible for what happens to you, I said in a deadly tone while leaking my killing intent while holding a kunai knife to his throat. While Ankoku was hissing dangerously and getting ready to strike, I enjoyed the scared look on Potter's face as he scrambled out the door muttering something that sounded awfully like, evil Slytherins. Blaze was grinning widely, and Daphne burst out into laughter. Who's up for a game of exploding snap? Blaze offered, pulling out the cards. Third POV. After few round of exploding snap, their chatter ceased as the door to the cabin slowly slid open, and a tall, lanky boy was revealed. He blushed furiously. Sorry. I didn't know this cabin was filled. The boy stuttered, turning to leave. Wait, Haru called out, causing the boy to freeze in place. What is your name? She said in that angelic voice. Neville. Neville Longbottom. Come sit. My name is Haru Peverell Chimay-Takina Habi. This is Blaze Zabini and Daphne Greengrass. Haru spoke in her angelic voice, and pointed to a spot next to Blaze. Neville looked startled at her kindness. Every other cabin he had went into had snickered at him or hexed him out the door. Not wanting to pass the opportunity up, Neville stumbled over to the seat. "Why do you look so nervous?" "We won't bite," Haru said with smile. "Why are you being so nice to me?" "All the other kids laughed at me and sent me away," Neville said sadly. "Do we need a reason? You seem like a nice kid, just a bit too jumpy and a bit nervous. We just need to toughen you up a bit, and they won't know what hit them." Daphne smiled. "I don't know. I'm not very good at anything," Neville mumbled. Haru shot Neville a cold look. How Neville just talked reminded her of Naruto before her father took him in. Haru looked at Neville and said, "Stop doubting yourself. You are a great wizard, and you need to believe that you're stronger than you think. I can tell that you'll be an amazing wizard one day. You just have to show the world that you can do it. Just don't stop believing." It was in that moment, Neville Longbottom had an epiphany. He truly was strong, he was a pure-blood wizard, and he can be an amazing wizard one day in the future. He would become even better. Haru Orochimaru Takina Habi and her friends had helped him realize this within 5 minutes of meeting him for the first time. They had brought him out of his quivering shell and had treated him like one of their own. From that moment on, Neville Longbottom knew he would be loyal to these people no matter what. It was time to stop being the cowardly, shaky little boy. Now it was time to start acting like the powerful wizard he was and show the world that he was worthy of being Haru Orochimaru Takina Habi's friend. The four friends talked for a while when they heard a knock on their door, and Blaze reluctantly opened the door. "Anything from the trolley, dears?" a plump lady asked, gesturing to the cart heavily laden with candy and junk food. Blaze glanced back and raised an eyebrow. "We'll take a couple of everything," Haru said firmly, reaching inside her money pouch. "It's on me." Haru handed the lady some galleons. She looked irritated at the large order, but still began to hand Haru the candy. She placed everything on the side table, and closed the door before sitting back down. "Please help yourselves, you guys are my friends," Haru said with a smile, making all her new friends smile, and started to eat some of the candies. Haru smiled and picked up a box of Birdie Bot's every flavor beans. "Birdie Bot's every flavor beans?" Haru asked, confused. As she opened the box. "You want to be careful with these. When they say every flavor, they mean every flavor. You know, you get all the ordinary ones like chocolate and peppermint and marmalade, but then you can get spinach and liver and tripe," Neville said as Haru picked up a brown one and placed it in her mouth. Mine was chocolate," Haru said. "Strange, but not completely bad." Neville hesitantly tried one and luckily he got cherry. Blaze wasn't so lucky, and ended up eating a spinach-flavored one. Daphne did not want to eat one, for fear of getting a disgusting flavored one. Time skip. Haru was genuinely surprised when the train lurched to a stop and her gazed outside at a dark platform where older students were getting off and leaving their luggage on the platform. "We're here already?" Neville asked. Haru grabbed her belongings and sealed the leftover candy for later. She helped Neville pull his down along with the rest of her friends. "Shall we?" Haru proposed. They exited the train, depositing their trunks outside. With Ankoku wrapped around her neck and rested comfortably around Haru's shoulders. Furs years over here." A tall man was waving his hands with a lantern as soon as they got off the train. Haru trudged over, and everyone else followed her. The man was more like a giant, and had a large, coal-black beard. He spoke very roughly and directed all the furs years onto the boats. "No more for to a boat," he hollered. Haru, Daphne, Neville and Blaze all piled into one boat. They rolled their eyes as they saw a Weasley and Potter shrieking with excitement. When they neared the castle, Haru did her best to not look like a gaping fish. And pulled a blank scroll and started writing in kanji. All her friends looked at her in shock in seeing Haru write so fast in kanji. Sadly, they couldn't read what she's writing. After writing, Haru resealed her scroll, looked at her friends. She smiled. "My apologies, I was writing my observations for my father," Haru explained. Daphne gave a small, amused smile at Haru. "No worries, we understand perfectly well that you are very curious." Haru looked around once more as she said, "The winters here will be very cold," Haru stated as she shivers slightly. "It isn't cold where you're from?" Daphne asked in curiosity. "I'm from Konohagakure in Hai no Kuni, the village hidden in the leaves in the land of fire. It is mild and rarely snows," Haru answered with a nostalgic smile, already missing her home and her family. They reached the docks, and Neville helped Haru as Blaze helped Daphne out the boat. They entered the castle through large wooden double doors, and Haru's eyes widened. It was massive, bigger than the Hokage Tower. But her thoughts were cut short when they heard someone say, "Neville, is that you? Why are you with them? They're evil Slytherins. All of them," a redhead yelled loudly. Neville glared coldly at him. "Don't insult my friends. Ever." Haru looked to see a redhead boy and thought, is he an Uzumaki? "You must be a Weasley." Blaze concluded. "Which one are you?" "My name's Ron," he growled angrily. "My father told me the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford." Blaze sneered. "Enough fighting children. We all read." As we all looked to see women standing there. "Hello, I am Professor Potter. I am the Muggle studies teacher at Hogwarts." She spoke softly. "This is the entrance hall. Welcome to Hogwarts. I am Professor Potter. Now, in a few moments you will pass through these doors and join your classmates, but before you take your seats, you must be sorted into your houses. They are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Now while you're here, your house will be like your family. Your triumphs will earn you points. Any rule breaking, and you will lose points. At the end of the year, the house with the most points is awarded the House Cup. You have a couple minutes before you enter the Great Hall. I suggest you use these moments to tidy yourselves up. The sorting ceremony will begin shortly." After being passed off to a Minerva McGonagall, the group of first years was led to a hallway with 4 unbelievably long tables with multiple students sitting around them. There were 4 banners, one above each table. One was green with a silver snake. Another was blue with a bronze raven. The third was red with a gold lion, and the fourth was yellow with a black badger. The ceiling looked like it wasn't there, but Haru could tell that there was elaborate genjutsu used to make it appear like the sky outside. At the end of the room was another long table with adults sitting at them. An old man with a long beard and half-moon glasses in the center sitting at an ornate golden throne. Haru narrowed her eyes, having a bad feeling about this, or the feeling of not trusting the old man. In front of that table stood McGonagall in his dark green robes, standing next to a 3-legged stool with a tattered hat on it. Haru gazed intently at the hat as it opened up and sang. Quickly pulled out her scroll and wrote notes about how the chakra was used in the hat and the genjutsu on the ceiling. The hat was the most interesting to Haru, seeing an inanimate object given a personality and life. Her father would have a field day when he hears this. McGonagall cleared her throat and announced the first name, Abbott, Hannah. A chubby girl with blonde hair and pigtails, nervously stepped up and carefully sat on the stool. McGonagall placed the sorting hat on her head, and the girl fidgeted nervously. There was a brief moment of silence, before the hat announced, Hufflepuff. Blaze snickered under his breath. What a disgrace. Haru rolled her eyes at her friend remark on the girl. The girl scampered off to the cheering table at the far right. Millicent Bulstrode, a slightly big girl with short straight hair, became the first Slytherin. This continued when Haru heard her new friends being called, Greengrass, Daphne. Daphne winked, and walked up to the stool. Haru could tell she was nervous, but she didn't try to show it. Daphne smoothed down her hair, and McGonagall placed the hat on her head. The hat took a couple minutes, but declared her in, Slytherin. Daphne proudly sauntered to the Slytherin table. Their cheers were far more reserved than the obnoxious cheering of the Gryffindors and Hufflepuffs. Longbottom, Neville. Neville casually walked up to the stool, and sat down. The hat looked to be deep in thought. Interesting. Very interesting. Loyal, to one girl. Yes, almost to a fault. But an unquenchable thirst to prove yourself. Very well then. Slytherin. It shouted. Neville looked startled, but hesitantly walked over to the Slytherin table. The hall was silent. Some of the teachers at the high table gasped in surprise. The short charms professor had even fallen off his chair. Haru giggled lightly in seeing that. Malfoy, Draco. A boy with Draco's smooth blonde hair swaggered up to the stool. He sat down, and McGonagall reached for the hat. The hat didn't even touch the young. When it announced, Slytherin, Draco smirked, and went to the clapping Slytherin table. Haru exchanged a glance with Blaze. Potter, Jacob. Haru giggled lightly as the chubby chosen one ran up to the stool. McGonagall placed the hat on his head, and it was almost dead silent. After a few minutes, the hat frowned and shouted, Gryffindor. The hall was filled with the loud cheers of Gryffindor. They drummed the table with silverware, and whooped and screamed. We got Potter. We got the chosen one. The students in Gryffindor chanted. Dumbledore smiled, and half-heartedly told everyone to settle down. Fem Orochimaru Takina Habi Haru. McGonagall stuttered, in shock as everyone in the Great Hall was also in shock. Well, almost everyone. Everyone gasped in seeing Haru's appearance. She had black raven hair, pale skin and the snake-like eyes with the purple markings. But her eyes are an emerald green. Haru strolled up to the stool and sat down. She strengthened her mental seals, and she could feel the hat lower on her head. I must praise you for your nearly indestructible occlumency shields, but please lower them, my dear girl. Everything I see, I have sworn to never repeat. Haru reluctantly lowered her seals, and the hat made a sound akin to a gasp. My Ms. Fem Orochimaru Takina Habi. Or should I say Sophia Potter? Haru remained silent, not wanting everyone to know that secret of hers. Difficult, very difficult. Impressive mind. Plenty of courage, I see. Brave and daring too. If you may, please do not place me in a house of arrogant and idiot people. Haru said in her mind. The hat chuckled. Don't worry. Gryffindor, while it appreciates your qualities, is not the house for you. The light side is in for quite a surprise, We're expecting great things from you, Sophia Potter. The only house you belong in is Slytherin. Dear father, I've been sorted into Slytherin, the house of the serpents, the perfect house for me since I'm a snake summoner and the daughter of Orochimaru Chimei Takina Habi the snake Sanin and the Godem Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. I think that Slytherin is the perfect house for me. Also, I've even made some friends while coming to Hogwarts. Their names are Daphne Greengrass, heiress of the Greengrass family, Blaise Zabini, heir to the Zabini family, and lastly there's Neville Longbottom, heir to the Longbottom family. Both Daphne's and Blaise's families are considered dark, or better terms dark families who study the dark arts, dark magic and other rituals that considered dark. As for Neville, his family is considered light. I don't understand this, father. But I will continue my observations, finding what's the difference between light families and dark families. And see if there are a threat to our village. Also, father, I come to consider that one of my friends, Neville, he told me that his parents were driven to insanity by a curse called the Cruciatus curse. Also, known as the torture curse, is a tool of the dark arts and one of the 3 unforgivable curses? It is one of the most powerful and sinister spells known to wizard kind. When cast successfully, the curse inflicts intense, excruciating pain on the victim. The use of this curse on another human being is a lifelong sentence in Azkaban. That's what Neville had told me, and I was wondering that you could send Tsunade, my godmother, and Inoichi Yamanaka here and to have a look at them. I feel sorry for Neville, and from what he told me his life with his grandmother is not pleasant. Please consider this, father, I really want to help him. P.S. Please tell everyone that I miss them and tell to do not do something stupid while I'm gone. With love, Haru. Once done writing to her father, Haru sealed her scroll away as she promised to herself that she'll write to her godfathers once she got to her dorm. But now wasn't the time. Haru refused to make eye contact with the old headmaster, having a bad feeling about the man. But Haru listened while she gazed at all the professors, only to stop when she felt her scar start to act up. Using a small medical chakra technique to stop the pain that was coming from her scar. While still listening to the headmaster. After when the headmaster was done talking, the food appeared on the table and everyone began eating, well, everyone except Haru. She gazed at the dinner selection. There was shalapan steak and many more Japanese dishes that she sees at home. When Haru was about to pick up her chopsticks to begin to eat, only to stop when there was a pop in the middle of the table in front of her, startling and the rest of the students in the Great Hall. When the smoke cleared, there was a small fox and a small snake standing there with the scrolls in their mouths. All the teachers and students were shocked to see the 2 animals standing there waiting for Haru to take the scrolls. Smiling, Haru takes this scrolls from the 2 summoning animals and said, "Hello Ito and Andrea, how are you two? We are fine, Lady Haru. Your father just sent a message and your brother sends one as well. Everyone in the village misses you greatly and hopes to see you soon in the holidays. Also Lord Manda and Lord Kurama, which is to speak to you soon, and Lord Manda wishes that you could summon him once in a while so he could continue to teaching you the ways of the serpent. After all, you're the next snake summoner." Ito said as bowed his head. Haru smiled and said, "Very well, I'll speak to them soon." And with that both Ito and Andrea disappeared, leaving a very shocked Great Hall while Haru just picked her bowl of steamed rice and another small bowl of miso soup. On a small plate, there was a small portion of grilled salmon, nori, dried seasoned seaweed, and tsukemono, Japanese pickles, with a small plate of green salad next to it. "Hey Haru, what was that and what's your village like?" asked very curious Neville Longbottom. Haru smiles in place for chopsticks down and said, "Well, Ito and Andrea are called summoning animals. There are a few different animal clans that people can summon. Ito is from the Serpent clan while Andrea is from the Kitsune clan. The summoning technique is a space-time ninjutsu that allows the summoner to transport animals or people across long distances instantly and uses blood as a sacrifice. But before an animal summoning can be performed, a prospective summoner must first sign a contract with a given species. The contract comes in the form of a scroll, on which the contractor uses their own blood to sign their name and place their fingerprints, and once signed it is valid even after the contractor's death as long as the contract itself remains intact. After this, they need only offer an additional donation of blood on the hand they signed the contract with, mold their magic with hand seals, and then plant the hand they signed the contract with at the location they wish to summon the creature. The amount of magic used during the summoning determines how powerful the summoned creature can be. It is possible for a summoner to summon a group of the same contracted animal, as opposed to a single individual. It should be noted that anyone can summon a contracted animal as long as they have the blood of someone who has made a contract, the seal of the summoned creature, and a source of sufficient magic that the summon will accept. A creature is capable of determining who is attempting to summon it from the magic used. While most summoners have only been shown capable of summoning one type of creature, Nagato, through the animal path, was able to summon several different animals and even people, and seemingly did not require a blood offering when performing this technique. Some people are able to summon both snakes and hawks, though no one has been seen summoning both species at the same time. Haru said as she looked at while looking at Neville. Well, continue explaining about her village. My village is Konohagakure no Sato. In English it's the village hidden in the leaves, or hidden leaf village, literally meaning village hidden by tree leaves, is the hidden village of the land of fire. As the village of one of the 5 great shinobi countries, Konohagakure has a kage as its leader known as the Hokage, of which there have been 5 in its history. Konoha resides deep within a forest at the base of a mountain known as the Hokage Rock, which has the faces of all those who have taken the office of Hokage engraved on it. While generally seen as the most powerful of the ninja villages, Konoha has enjoyed many years of relative peace and stability. Even though my village stands for peace and tranquility, my village has seen dark times. My village has seen there were 3 great wars that cost so many people their lives, their family. But the most devastating of all was the great 9-tailed demon attack on my village on October. The former Hokage of our village died protecting the village by sealing that said demon into his newborn son. Even though my village has seen dark times and wars, everyone continues, everyone still fights. It's the way of life over there. I'll continue fighting to protect my village. That's the life of a shinobi, that's my nindo way, Haru said with a smile. After everyone was finished eating at the great feast, all first years had to be led to their common rooms by the prefects where they're going to meet their head of house. Haru looked around as she remembered what the prefects said about Slytherin. Our emblem is the serpent, the wisest of creatures. Our house colors are emerald green and silver, and our common room lies behind a concealed entrance down in the dungeons. As you'll see, its windows look out into the depths of the Hogwarts lake. We often see the giant squid swooshing by, and sometimes more interesting creatures. We like to feel that our hangout has the aura of a mysterious underwater shipwreck. Haru sighed as she looked around the common room. It was like a dungeon-like room with greenish lamps and chairs. This dungeon extends partway under the lake, giving the light in the room a green tinge. The common room has lots of low-backed black and dark green button-tufted, leather sofas, skulls, and dark wood cupboards. It is decorated with tapestries featuring the adventures of famous medieval Slytherins. It has quite a grand atmosphere, but also quite a cold one. The password to the common room changes every fortnight, and it is posted on the notice board. Slytherin students are warned never to bring students from other houses into the common room or to reveal the password. Supposedly, no outsider has entered the common room for more than 7 centuries. That when Haru's head of House Severus Snape gave his welcome speech. Once that done, Haru walked up to her dorm and started to write her letter to her godfathers, telling them what house she was shorted into and so on. My dear daughter, I don't ever want you to forget how much I love you, Haru. Everyone in the village that misses you. The moment you left, the village seems empty. I know it's only been a few days since you left for your mission to this Hogwarts to see if they're a danger to the village. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm worried for my daughter. I keep getting questions or concerns from our rest of our family. They're worried about you, Haru. Your sister Anko, your brother Kabuto and Naruto are worried sick, and I can feel the same. I'm worried about you, my daughter, how this will affect you by meeting your biological parents. I fear that will change you. I know for a fact that you may resent them, even hate them. When I got a word from your godfathers that you met your biological parents only by passing, it scared me. I won't lie, it terrified me in how you'll react to seeing your parents. But this doesn't change anything. You are my daughter. They have no longer have the right to call you their daughter, not anymore. On another side note, your suitors are constantly asking when are they able to send you letters or gifts. I know for a fact that they won't stop nagging to me unless I give them confirmation to write to you. I seriously do not understand how a group of S-rank ninjas has fallen in love with my sweet little girl. It's unheard of, and I'll be damned if I let them even try seducing my little girl. It's bad enough that I have to keep the council at bay, but now I have to keep an S-rank group of ninjas in line when it comes to my little girl. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, Haru. I want you to write a daily report or weekly report about the situation that's going on at Hogwarts. I do not trust the headmaster, not one bit. If anything happens, you are allowed to use any rank of ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, and fuinjutsu. This is an order from your Hokage. You are even allowed to use any spells you learn from that school, no matter light or dark. It will help you in your survival in unknown territory. Do you understand? I'm even permitting to let you use the Kusanagi, and knowing Kisame, he will send you to another sword just in case. May the will of fire live within you, my daughter. I wish your safe return to us during the holidays. Love, your father Orochimaru, the Godem Hokage. After reading her father's letter, she looked at the scroll left by her brother Naruto. Sighing, she opened the scroll and seeing what her brother who wrote to her. Dear Haru, things have gotten a lot quieter when you left. Who am I kidding? It's been a lot different since you left. I know it's only been a few days, but everyone seems to misses you. You're most likely it's the brightest person everyone has seen in the village, and it's not the same for me since my partner in crime is no longer with me to help me with these awesome pranks. Anyway, I want to let you know that I passed the Genin exam. I am now fully a ninja and will be taking our team placement soon, but Dad told me that whoever's on my team will be sent to you where you are at Hogwarts as backup. Knowing how paranoid Dad can get. But our team will be sent there soon. I don't know who's on my team, but I hope it's not that Teme Sasuke Uchiha. It's bad enough that there's two which he has after you know third one. Man, Haru, you're like a broody, moody magnet. Anyway, I'll write to you soon, Haru. With love, Naruto. Haru smiled as she placed her letter down and began to unpack. Once she was done unpacking her belongings, she walked towards the desk and pulled out a piece of parchment and her quill and started writing to her dogfathers. Dear Sirius and Remus, you won't believe what house I've been sorted into. I've been sorted into Slytherin. The House of the Serpent. Kind of funny since my last name is technically Deadly Serpent in Japanese. I made a new couple of friends on the train towards Hogwarts today. Their names are Neville Longbottom, Daphne Greengrass, and Blaze Zabini. All that I became friends with pureblood, even though I'm a half-blood, or am I pureblood, I don't know. But what I can tell that my friends believe that I'm a princess from my country. Well, technically that's kind of true since my father is the leader of my village. Does that make me a princess? Anyway, I even met my so-called brother, and from what I seen I'm not impressed. He's a fat, overweight, spoiled, arrogant child. It's sad that we're technically twins. We don't look anything alike anymore, and I'm glad for that, cause I seen his so-called friend Ron Weasley. Just by looking at him I can tell that he is nothing but a leech sucking up the fame of the boy who lived, and I even saw Lily and James Potter, my so-called parents. And to say that I'm not impressed seeing my so-called parents for the first time. I thought I would have felt something like regret, curiosity, wondering why they abandoned me to my relatives the Dursleys, who I believe are now deceased. But that doesn't matter anymore. I don't see them as my parents. I don't see them as a family. Is that wrong for me to feel that way for the people who brought me to the world and just to throw me away like old trash? I think I should thank them instead cause of their actions. I have been placed into a wonderful home with a loving father and older sister who is very overprotective when it comes to me, and a very overprotective older brother that loves to cut people open if they hurt his baby sister, and very adventurous and younger brother. And two amazing dog fathers that love me for me and wanted to get to know me even though that I was giving away and abandoned, and for that, I will always love you too and be grateful to have you as my dog fathers. An entire village that loves me for being me even though I'm like a carbon copy of my father but the female version of him. And an S-rank group of mercenaries, they're saying that they're going to be my future husbands, which is kind of true ever since my dad had this whole meeting of making an alliance or truce with them, I don't know. But ever since I can remember the day that my dad introduced me to the Akatsuki, they became like a very overprotective group of males who intend to be my husbands when I come of age. Since I've been placed under the CRA, the Clan Resurrection Act, and my father disagreed about me being a baby maker. Auntie Conan is keeping an eye on those who want to be part of my little harem. I don't know why people call it that, but I know that I'm supposed to have more than 5 husbands. So, I have a group of S-rank ninjas that want to become my husbands, and 2 of them are technically from the Uchiha clan. From what I can tell, there's going to be a lot of more that are going to be added into the group. That means Auntie Conan will have a lot of work on her hands. But I trust her, she knows what she's doing and she will always pick what is best for me along with my dad if he doesn't kill them at first. That is all for now. I hope you can write to me soon. I miss the both of you, my beloved dog fathers. With love, Haru. After finishing her letter, Haru placed it on the desk and with the thought of sending it straight to her dog fathers early next morning before class starts. Haru looked around her dorm room and walked towards her wardrobe, looking through her wardrobe to pull out her sleepwear. It was most likely a silk white kimono that she always wears to sleep. Quickly getting dressed in her silk white kimono, she looked around and saw her favorite pet snake asleep. After placing on Ankoku in his container or on his sleeping rock, that's what he calls his rock, Haru climbed onto her 4-poster bed and closed the curtains as she looked up at the canopy and thinking what will happen tomorrow. In a new world of witchcraft and wizardry. It was exciting but also terrifying, but she couldn't forget her mission. She must figure out if this place was a danger to her village. If it was a danger, her father will cut off all ties. If it wasn't, it will become a great ally. She just hopes that once this is all done, she'll make her father proud. Meanwhile, in Konohagakure, Orochimaru was working on his latest paperwork as he sighed and looked at the photo of his family. Orochimaru couldn't help but smile and seeing his family so happy when this photo was taken. Both Naruto and Haru were both maybe 6 or 7 years old. Kabuto maybe in his 13 or early teens, and Anko was in her early 20s. Smiling once more but looking back at the paperwork only to see it double in size. Orochimaru's eyes widen. I swear to God that paperwork is breathing. I know for a fact it's laughing at me, he thought as he banged his head on his desk, wondering why did he take the position of Hokage. Cursing all layers of hell to Sarutobi Hiruzen, the former Hokage, in dropping this hellish nightmare that is known as paperwork on him. Raising his head from the desk, his eye is twitching and seeing the massive amount of paperwork. With an evil smirk on his face, he did a fireball jutsu, burning the demon known as paperwork to ashes. Sighing in satisfaction, Orochimaru looked back at the window towards the village, seeing the night sky. Praying to Kami that his daughter will make it through this endeavor. He knew assigning her to this S-rank mission is dangerous to unknown territory, but she was the only one that was accepted to this magical school. Knowing that she is safe staying with her godfathers, but he worries that her former family will try to do something. Especially that old headmaster. Orochimaru can tell just by seeing the man that he knew that Albus Dumbledore was a manipulator. You would do anything to get what he wants, even branding you as evil for the grand scheme of the greater good. But he refused to let his daughter become a pawn to this man. It's true, Haru was made to become a weapon to the village, but only to the village and to no one else. It was her choice to become a ninja. And for that, Orochimaru respects his daughter's decision to serve the village that she was born and raised into. Ninjas are killers, mercenaries for hire. Even if the magical world will see them as evil, it's their way of life. Nothing can change that, and nothing will. Hoping that his daughter will remembers the reason why she became a ninja. Letting out another sigh as he looked at the people that's currently in his office. His eyebrow twitching and seeing the certain group of S-rank ninjas currently trying to convince or beg him to let them go and guard Haru while she's at Hogwarts. Not wanting to deal with this, Orochimaru pulled out the kusanagi and started yelling at them to get out of his office and to stay away from his little girl. Meanwhile, in the headmaster's office. The headmaster's office was fairly full. All the professors involved in protecting the Philosopher's Stone were there, meaning Flitwick, Sprout, McGonagall, Quirrell and Snape. Although Hagrid had also contributed to the stone's protection, he was not present because there was nothing to alter in his defense, and James and Lily Potter were also there as members of the Order of the Phoenix. However, instead of discussing the stone's protection, like Albus intended, they were discussing the sorting of a particular student, one Haru Peveril Chime Takina Habi. James was being particularly vocal about the issue. Albus didn't know if he was in denial or if he had really thought that Haru couldn't possibly go to Slytherin. This can't be right, Albus. Why would the hat place Haru Peveril, Lady of Light family and the true head of the Potters, into Slytherin? Asked Lily. I don't know, my dear, I don't know, said Albus forlornly. The next morning with Haru. It was early morning when Haru decided to get ready for the day. It was her first day in taking magical classes. She was excited but also nervous. She didn't know what to expect. Sure, she was a ninja to train to become an assassin to kill at a very young age, but being trained to become a young witch, that's a whole nother thing. Finally dressed, Haru walked out of her room with a sleeping Ankoku wrapped around her neck. Not want to leave his master unguarded, not knowing what will happen. Quickly going to the Owl Postal Service, seeing Kuro waiting for his master. Haru smiled, and seeing that all the other owls keep their distance from Kuro to the fact that he's a larger bird than prey. Kuro was a black hawk after all. Good morning, Kuro. I want you to deliver this to my godfathers and my father Orochimaru, Haru said as she saw Kuro nod his head as Haru tied the 2 scrolls on his leg. Once done, Haru watched Kuro fly off to deliver the 2 letters. Once back in the common room, Haru began to meditate when Neville, Daphne, and Blaze came down. Haru opened her eyes and picked up a bag carrying the supplies for all her classes. Just because she was away from home didn't mean she wasn't going to do some form of weight training, even if it meant carrying everything at once. Headed out the door with her friends following behind her. Haru sat down at the very end of the Slytherin table, closest to the teachers, and gazed at the breakfast selection. She took a few fried mushrooms and a crumpet with orange marmalade on it. Still, she grew up in a hidden island outside of Japan. She was used to Japanese meals. As if magic, a traditional Japanese breakfast appeared in front of her next to her mushrooms and crumpet. There was a small bowl of steamed rice and another small bowl of miso soup. On a small plate, there was a small portion of grilled salmon, nori, dried seasoned seaweed, and tsukemono, Japanese pickles, with a small plate of green salad next to it. Blaze looked at the choices in curiosity, and Daphne looked up at the table and asked, "Could I have the same thing?" In a heartbeat, the same dishes were in front of her as Haru tried her first fried mushroom. It was different than Haru expected. Japanese breakfasts were lighter than the things served here and were meant to meet one's appetite without being too heavy of filling. It was how shinobi could train in less time waiting for breakfast. The crumpets were more enjoyable, especially with the zest of the orange marmalade. With that food sampled, she picked up a fork and sighed, used to having chopsticks. With that, Haru took a small forkful of salmon. Professor Snape was moving around the table with stacks of paper but paused upon seeing what Haru and Daphne were eating. He shook his head, reminding himself that Haru was raised in a different country. "Excuse me for the interruption, Ms. Peveril Chime Takina Habi, but I have your class schedule," he said, offering one of the papers to Haru. Haru took it with an utter of quiet thanks and looked at it as he continued passing out the schedules, first to Neville, then Daphne and Blaze before moving further down the table. Haru stared intently at the schedule. She placed the schedule in her bag and resumed eating, taking a piece of tsukemono with a forkful of steamed rice. After swallowing, she looked up at Blaze's curious look. "Why are you eating that kind of food?" he asked Haru, making others look at her plate. "This is a traditional Japanese breakfast," Haru answered, taking a spoon to have a little of the miso soup, something that isn't too heavy on the stomach as well. Very few words were spoken as the small quartet finished their breakfasts. As Haru looked at her schedule, a small smirk pulled on her lips. "I dare say things are about to be interesting," she said to herself. Time skip. Haru and her friends were sitting in their seats in the potions lab when the door slammed open and Severus Snape made his way to the front of the class and immediately started taking roll call. He paused at Haru's name and looked like he wanted to comment but reined it in and continued until he called on Zabini, Blaze. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," Professor Snape began. His voice was quiet but he had the entire class entranced. "As there is little foolish wand waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, ensnaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." Professor Snape turned to Jacob. "Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Jacob looked embarrassed as he answered, "I don't know." Haru can tell that Professor Snape was enjoying this, as he continued his onslaught of questions. "And if I were to ask you to find a bezoar?" Once again Jacob said, "I don't know." Maybe Professor Snape was enjoying this a little too much, Haru thought as she continued watching the spectacle. Professor Snape turned to Haru. "Ms. Peverell, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Haru didn't answer immediately, instead of taking a moment to think. If she remembered correctly, this was covered in the introduction to her potions books. "The draft of living death, sir." "Indeed." Snape paused. "I were to ask you to find a bezoar, where would you look?" "The stomach of a goat, sir," Haru said as she looked at her professor. "Explain its use." Snape challenged. "It is an antidote to most poisons," Haru said while thinking about how Sasori would react if she gave him a bezoar. "The difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" Haru thought about it for a moment and answered, "Nothing, sir. They're the same plant, also known as aconite. Name an ingredient of the Wiggenweld potion." This time Haru looked confused and said, "Air. I don't know. I don't think that was covered in the textbook." Haru admitted shyly. "True." Professor Snape agreed. "Very well, 10 points to Slytherin for answering most of my questions correctly." Haru let out a sigh of relief. Being singled out like that terrified her, and she's supposed to be a ninja. The rest of the class was spent copying notes off the board and practicing different methods of preparing ingredients. Most of the purebloods seemed to have some instruction in this already. However, Haru knows the basics of making potions since she spends most of her time with a poison expert. Using the knowledge that she learned from Sasori making poison-making potions came naturally to her. "On Wednesday we will begin preparing the boil cure potion. I suggest you study it in your potion books beforehand," Snape advised. Dismissed. Before Haru noticed that a few days had passed, nothing had changed. Classes continued to be so easy that Haru found it almost boring, though it was funny seeing her brother fail in every classes and spells he tries. Tilda meanwhile with the teachers Tilda. Albus was in the staff room waiting for all the professors to arrive so they could start the meeting. While he waited he noticed that his potion master was glaring at James, who was also glaring back while Lily just looked annoyed at her husband. James Potter is the new flying teacher this year where he'll be teaching the first years. Albus called his colleagues' attention so that they could start. As was usual they started with the older years, like that the professors that only gave classes to students the third year and up were free to go when they reached the second and first years, considering that they hardly dealt with those students. A little over 2 hours later they had finally arrived at the first years and Albus had to admit that he was curious to see how Lady Haru and Jacob had adapted. "And is there a first year that has shown particular talent?" Albus inquired. It was a usual question, he asked it every year, as did every headmaster before him. There wasn't always a student that had more talent than their peers, but occasionally there was a student that was particularly talented in one field or another, and the professors would keep an eye on them and encourage them to study independently in those fields. Albus, James, and Lily were shocked when they heard that Jacob was failing in all his classes. He shows no magical talent, he was basically a squib. But they were in more shocked when Minerva ended up being the first. She pulled something out of her pocket and put it in the center of the table. "Minerva?" inquired Albus, asking himself what his longtime friend was doing. "That was made by a student on her first transfiguration class." Albus raised an eyebrow and picked up what appeared to be a needle, and as soon as he saw the needle up close his eyes opened wide. The needle was a work of art. The curious stares from his colleagues told him he hadn't been able to conceal his amazement. Knowing that if they didn't see the needle they wouldn't be able to understand, Albus passed the needle to Phileas, who was on his left. Albus was pleased to see that the charms professor was also unable to conceal his wonder. After the needle had gone around all the professors he asked, "Who? You didn't recognize the initials?" Minerva asked with a little smile. "HPC, Haru Peverell Chime Takina Habi." Ms. Peverell was able to achieve the transfiguration on her first try, and she also turned the needle back into a match on the first try. Then she spent the rest of the class playing with her needle, changing it in every way she could imagine, mostly turning her needle into unknown species of snakes. I was the one to tell her to try and change the needle, but I never expected this. I have never seen anyone with so much talent. Albus hadn't seen Minerva this excited in a long time, she was practically gushing. He heard Phileas chuckle and saw the tiny professor shake his head. Apparently it isn't only my class that is child's play to her. I swear that she's bored in class. I don't think that anything I give them truly challenges her. The other professors joined the conversation, all of them stating that Haru was among the best if not the best student of her year. Finally, it was time for the much-anticipated flying class. Haru hadn't expected to have it so soon, but when she saw the notice in the common room she was elated. Flying on brooms. She'd been waiting forever to try it. She doubted it would be as nice as flying without a broom, but she wouldn't get a chance to do that for quite some time. Haru couldn't wait, but she really didn't want to deal with her father, James Potter, who stood in front of them and was lecturing them about basic broom safety. Finally, he gave the word to summon their brooms. "Up," Haru commanded. The broom immediately flew into her hand. She grinned and turned to look at Daphne, who was having much more trouble than her. Observing Neville next, she saw the two definitely had something in common. "All right," James called after most of the children had successfully summoned their brooms. "Mount your brooms. On the count of 3 we'll kick off. 1, 2, thr." He didn't get a chance to finish as Neville pushed off too early. Haru, Daphne, and Blaze looked worried as their friend flew into the air and lost control of his broom, eventually falling off. As James told Blaze to take Neville to the hospital wing, seeing as he had broken his arm. That's when Haru noticed her. Borther, Jacob spotted a round object on the ground. Picking it up he laughed and announced that Neville must have dropped it. As James had left to tell the headmaster about what happened. "How about I throw it in the Forbidden Forest so he really loses it?" Jacob jeered. "Give it back, Potter," Haru demanded. "Make me, Peverell." Jacob climbed on his broom and pushed off. Haru immediately climbed on her own and followed him despite Daphne's protests. "Give it here." She held out her arm. "No thanks." Jacob then threw it across the field. Haru sped after it but managed to catch it while unknowingly doing a Ronsky feint. All the Slytherins cheered, but the cheers soon turned screams of horror as Haru's broom was cut in half by a cutting curse. As Haru soon began to fall, and please note she was maybe 200 feet in the air at the time. Haru's eyes widened as images of her family flashed in her mind as Haru remembered something that could save her. Biting her thumb, doing the hand seals of the summoning jutsu and yell out, "Kachiyose no jutsu." As a cloud of smoke covered the area when it cleared, everyone, even the teachers, could see a very large snake of the Ryuchi cave. Lord Manda is the largest snake in the world, being recently outsized. He easily towered over buildings, trees, and large rock formations. Due to his length, he was even larger than Gamabunta and Katsuyu and was easily able to coil around Katsuyu, having additional length behind him. Additionally, he could open his jaws wide enough to swallow Gamabunta whole. Manda is colored purple and had black rings running down intervals on his body. He had massive fangs, though they were arranged in a way similar to that of a constrictor snake instead of a viper or other venomous snake species, presumably carrying venom in them from the way they were designed, and green eyes. He also had 4 horn-like protrusions on his head. "I did it, I really did it," Haru said in disbelief as she realized that she was standing on Lord Manda. "Who dares to summon me?" Lord Manda called out, scaring all the students and some of the teachers. "I did, Lord Manda," Haru said as she lowered herself to Manda's snout so Manda can see her. "Ah, Haru, hello my dear. Why did you summon me?" Manda questioned. "Ah yes, you see I was falling a few feet from the air." But Haru was soon cut off when Manda yelled out, "What?" Haru just sighed and looked at Manda and said, "Can I please finish, if you please?" Manda nodded his head while somehow looking sheepish. "As I was saying, I was falling due to someone used a cutting curse on my broom, cutting it in half," Haru explained to Manda as he lowered his head so Haru can jump off and land safely on the ground. As all the teachers came running towards Haru as they looked worried when Manda just glared at them, daring them to hurt his summoner. As Professor Dumbledore asked Haru if she was certain that someone used a cutting curse on her broom. Before Haru could answer, Blaze came running and told all the teachers that was Professor Potter who sent the cutting curse towards Haru. He manages to see it when he was returning after leaving Neville at the hospital wing. Hearing this, Lord Manda was not pleased. Without any warning, Lord Manda lunged for James Potter. Everyone scream is only do as watch as Manda lunged towards Professor Potter, but Manda only to graze him on the side with one of his fangs. James Potter was writhing on the floor in pain as Manda's poison slowly ate away at the cells of his body. "You little fool, how dare you try to kill my summoner, let alone a princess of the Hidden Village? Are you trying to declare war on this stupid wizarding world and this school you call Hogwarts?" Manda yelled, shocking everyone how important Haru is. "That it? If this school cannot provide suitable protection for you, my summoner, I will have no choice to reverse summon your father Haru so he can learn of this," Manda said as he looked at Haru, who had looked a little sad, and said, "I understand, Lord Manda, do what must be done." Manda nodded as he began to reverse summon. Of course, Dumbledore tries to interfere. "Is this really necessary, Lord Manda? James didn't mean to place young Haru in danger," Dumbledore said, trying to calm the giant snake. Manda just glared at the headmaster as a loud poof was heard in the clearing. There stood Orochimaru, the Godem Hokage. Orochimaru looked around in shocked as he saw Manda, and boy was he pissed. "Manda, why have you reversed summoned me?" Orochimaru said as he looked at the boss summoned. After few moments of Manda explaining the situation and what was going on and how James Potter was poisoned with his deadly venom, to say the less, Orochimaru was not happy. He told the headmaster that he'll give the anti-venom to James and also demanded that the Potters pay compensation on the attempt of murder of his daughter, who is a princess and the heiress of 6 ancient and powerful families, and almost declaring war also. He'll be sending someone to guard his daughter. This shocked the headmaster, knowing whoever that is sent to guard Haru will be reporting everything that happens in the school. This can't be good. Meanwhile, the adults were talking or yelling. Haru was ganged up by her friends. "Haru, I can't believe you did that. You could get in so much trouble, let alone almost dead," Daphne chastised. Haru defended her actions before she froze. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Professor Snape making his way toward her. "Shite," she swore under her breath. "Miss Peverell, come with me," Snape ordered. "Why yes, sir. How much trouble am I in?" "Just wait, Peverell. That couldn't be a good thing, could it?" Professor Snape led her to the herbology greenhouses. "Professor Sprout, may I borrow Flint, please?" "Flint?" Haru wondered. What was he needed for? "Yes, Professor Snape?" Flint asked once he arrived. "I have found you a seeker. Higgs desired to work on his studies this year, did he not?" "Yes. You're suggesting Peverell take the position?" "Indeed," Snape told him. "I saw her catch a remember all after quite the impressive flight, also doing a Ronsky feint. Well, she can come to practice and we'll put her through the hoops, but if she isn't up to snuff, we're not taking her," Flint cautioned. "I wouldn't expect anything else, Flint." Snape agreed. "So I'm not in trouble?" Haru piped up hopefully. "Oh no. You still have detention with me, Peverell. That was quite the reckless stunt, but Potter got the worst of it." He smirked. "Don't worry, that Potter brat will be joining you." The only thing stopping her from cursing was the fact that it would likely get her in even more trouble with the potions professor. Time skip. It was dinner time in the Great Hall, where Haru could only cringe in disgust and seeing her brother and his friend Ron Weasley wolf down their food. Haru sighed and shook her head as she heard Ankoku asked, "What is that I smell?" "Is that the chicken you promised me, mistress?" "It is," Haru answered, as Ankoku emerged from her sleeve and slithered onto the table. Several people sitting around her gasped in surprise, well, almost except for her friends. "Would you like some?" Haru asked. She looked at Ankoku. "I think so. I'm starving, mistress," Ankoku answered. "All that standing around made me impatient. I need to eat," Ankoku said as he looked at his mistress. Haru chuckled, and pulled a few pieces of chicken apart for her longtime friend, and placed them on the table. "There you go, Ankoku." Haru said as Ankoku looked at her and said, "Thank you, mistress." As he began to circle and strike at its prey, before swallowing a small piece. Take that I say," Ankoku said while playing with his food. Haru just giggled at Ankoku's antics. Haru just smiled as she to pick up her chopsticks and grabbed the unadon, along with some sashimi, namono, and mirakoripu. The feast ended, and all the food disappeared. Ankoku didn't like that and demanded that it come back immediately. But Haru told Ankoku that the food would be back in the morning like it always does. The next morning at breakfast, Ankoku yelled in a way only snakes could about the amount of owls that came swooping into the Great Hall. He tried to attack Kuro when he landed to visit and to drop off her letters that Haru got from her father and dogfathers. But Kuro just stared at Ankoku and clicked her beak in annoyance at the little nuisance. Kuro turned his back on the little snake to show his displeasure, and Ankoku used the end of his tail to flick Kuro's tail feathers. Kuro turned around sharply and used his wing to knock Ankoku off the table and onto the floor. As you can imagine, Ankoku didn't take kindly to that. "Listen here, you haughty overgrown feather duster. I will not be treated like that," he yelled, as he climbed up Haru's leg to get back onto the table. "All right, that is enough out of the both of you," Haru said sternly. "Let's try to get along, shall we?" "I don't like him," Ankoku said, and Kuro bobbed his head in what seemed to be a mutual agreement. "It will be all right. You just need to get used to each other." Kuro ruffled his feathers, and Ankoku glared at the bird, but neither made a move toward the other. Haru smiled at that as she opened the scroll her father sent only to throw it to the floor as smoke started to come out of it. With a loud poof there stood the one and only Kisame Hoshigaki. When the smoke cleared, the great hall was silent, but that didn't last long when everyone heard, "Kisame." Haru smiled and cheered as she launched herself at the shark-like man at full tilt. Kisame caught Haru and proceeded to spin her around while kissing Haru on her cheek, while cuddling her like a cute plushie, making Haru giggle and blush a light pink. Kisame smiled and said, "Hello, little princess." Haru pouted and said, "I'm not little Kisame." This only made Kisame chuckle in hearing Haru's answer. The class was pretty boring for Haru, while for Kisame he was taking note of everything and what's going on. Even all the teachers, and keeping a close eye on the headmaster and the three Potters. Not wanting them close to Haru after what James Potter did. To say Kisame was shocked at seeing Haru could turn a match into a needle, wondering if she could turn it into a kunai. The class was shared with the Gryffindors though, but the Gryffindors didn't do anything. The reason why Kisame was glaring at anyone who even looked at Haru or tried anything to her and her housemates. When Haru had done the spell flawlessly, McGonagall was impressed and praised her for it. She showed it off to the whole class, much to Haru's amazement. Ankoku sat on the edge of Haru's desk the whole time, but he managed to remain quiet. He seemed to think that the stern which would turn him into a needle if he spoke even a word. Professor McGonagall seemed a bit unnerved by Ankoku, but she didn't say anything bad about him. Herbology was next, and Haru enjoyed Professor Sprout's teaching. Sadly, Kisame couldn't stay in the classroom for long. After all, herbology was held in the greenhouses, and being part shark, Kisame can't stay in a greenhouse for long. He believes that he'll turn into a dry shark man if he stays in there for long. Ankoku seemed pleased with the class too, though not necessarily the teacher. Ankoku liked hiding in the dirt and among the plants, but Professor Sprout had asked Ankoku not to jump out of the plants and scare the other students. This class was shared with the Hufflepuffs, who all seemed afraid of them, but thankfully Ankoku was not targeting them. He was targeting anyone who dares try to harm his mistress, but Professor Sprout seemed to find his antics and choice of victims rather funny. During lunch, Haru and Kisame demonstrated the water techniques, proving to the wizards that ninjas are superior when it comes to elemental magic. All of the students were in awe of the demonstration, all but Jacob Potter, who was glaring at Haru for getting all the attention and with that shark man of hers. Once lunch was over, history of magic began. Haru giggled when Uric the Oddball was mentioned because he was an eccentric wizard when he was at Hogwarts from what she had read so far. Kisame was not impressed with Binns though. The ghost put the class to sleep and didn't even notice it. Ankoku even took the opportunity to catch a nap. Defense against the dark arts was different though. Haru and Kisame were not impressed with Quirrell at all. The man's stuttering problem was a hindrance to his teaching, and Kisame had half a mind to kill the man and teach the class himself. Ankoku, who sat on the edge of Haru's desk, didn't like the professor either and said he would bite him if he didn't start speaking correctly. Finally, potions, one of Haru's favorite subject, walking to class and taking her seat, Haru pulled out a quill and a piece of parchment. Began to write a letter for the pen pal program she saw back in the village, but completely forgot to write her letter before she left for the wizarding world. Hello Gaara. My name is Haru Chimate Takina Habib Peverell, and I saw that you put out to get a pen pal a few years back. It's really sad that no one chose you in that amount of time, but I guess that means I'm lucky. I get to be your pen pal, yay. Anyways, I know we don't really know a lot of each other, and I hope to change that, and I was hoping we can be friends. So I'm going to tell you about myself. Let's see. Well, I'm a girl. I sorta look like my dad, but a female version though. But I have emerald green eyes and I have a lightning bolt scar on the right side of my forehead. I have black hair and pale white skin. Oh, did I forget to mention that I'm a pure-blooded witch and the daughter of the Godem Hokage of Konohagakure? I'm not joking that I indeed am a wand-wielding witch. You see, when I was only a baby, maybe 1 year old, my biological parents abandoned me so they can raise my twin brother, the boy who lived. So my biological parents left me to the care of my aunt and uncle who didn't want me. They called me a freak and abandoned me and an ally in Konoha. That's where my dad Orochimaru, Chimate Takina Habib, took me in after he killed my aunt and uncle. I'm currently in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in the House of Slytherin, one of the 4 houses of Hogwarts. Hope you reply soon. Sincerely, Haru Chimate Takina Habib Peverell. Haru nodded in approval as her eyes scanned over the letter she had written, searching for any mistakes, and making sure it was correct enough to be correct. It's perfect. Smiling, Haru promised to go to the Owl Postal Service once the class is over. Professor Snape enters the classroom as he looked at Haru as Haru smiled and said, "Hello, Professor Snape." "Hello," he replied, nodding to Haru. "I'm here too." Kisame sat up, an irk mark appearing on his forehead. "Not now, Kisame," Haru said with a fake smile on her face. Kisame just glared and said, "Brat, fish stick, ink head, minnow. I'm a shark, you ungrateful swine. Whatever you say, fishbait," Haru said with a smirk as class started, keeping Kisame from answering. Once class ended, Haru ran to the Owl Postal Service to send off her letter. Time skipped the next day. After breakfast that same morning, Haru decided to spend some time outside in the warm sunshine along with her friends and Kisame. They were sitting beside the lake, and Ankoku was playing around in the shallow water. Haru and her friends had their homework for the week spread out in front of them. While Kisame was doing his daily routine of working out, they all stopped and looked up when Haru and Kisame heard footsteps approaching, while others just at Haru in confusion, but only to scowl in seeing the Potter brat and his 2 sidekicks. "Peverell, I challenge you to an honor duel," Jacob shouted. Haru blinked in shock, surprised, as she was not expecting for her stupid brother to do that. Still, as she heard herself, Jacob believes he could redeem his family in a way by defeating the girl who caused the problem in the first place. Had Jacob owned any measure of self-preservation, he would have seen the satisfied gleam in the bright green eyes and recanted his challenge. But Jacob was not known for logical thought. Hot-headed as ever, he glared at Haru, holding his wand out sideways in the manner of a formal challenge. Haru studied her brother carefully, glancing around to assess the positions and reactions of the people nearby. Jacob's declaration of an honor duel brought the attention of most of the teachers and the students. A formal challenge to a duel was not to be taken lightly. Haru swung her gaze back to Jacob, taking in the smug look of triumph on the boy's face. Smiling slightly, Haru said evenly, "Do you understand the formal rules of dueling, Jacob Potter?" Jacob immediately glared as he hissed angrily, "Of course I do, Peverell. What, are you afraid? Too cowardly to take me on?" Haru was unfazed. "Jacob, I am perfectly willing to accept your challenge, however, I need to ensure that you know what this means. It isn't required of me, but my personal honor demands that I ensure you understand what you're getting into should you lose. Now, again, do you understand the formal rules of dueling for those sharing the same blood or come the same family? Do you know the consequences?" Haru said while looking at her brother. Jacob was irate by this time. "The superior little prick. First, you won't be winning. I'm the boy who lived. I'm much stronger than you." Haru glanced around at all the silent, watching students and teachers, then said quietly, "Very well. I accept your challenge to a duel, Peverell versus Potter, the main branch of the family versus the side branch of the family. And for your sake, Jacob, I am offering you one last chance to back out, no harm done. At Jacob's mocking scoff, he simply nodded and held out his wand in formal acceptance. So mote it be. Jacob smirked. Ron is my second. Who's yours? Do you even know anyone who's willing to stand at your side? At this, Haru paused for a moment. Spying movement to the side, she looked in surprise as she was joined by her friend Neville Longbottom, who took a position on her right shoulder and said in a firm and steady tone, I'm Haru's second. This shocked the entire school. The Longbottoms and Potters were allies for many generations. To see a Longbottom go against the Potters means the alliance is no longer there. The shocked silence lasted long enough for Professor Flitwick to move more fully through the gathered students and teachers, having watched the confrontation from his position. Haru and Neville exchanged inscrutable looks before Haru nodded her thanks and turned back to Jacob Potter. Last time, Jacob, are you certain you understand? If you wanted to take an hour and go review the rules, I won't object. Haru said coolly. Jacob leaned down threateningly. I won't be giving you time to run away, you little prick. Now get into position. He was irked at the fact that Haru merely nodded, not caring. As people backed away and left a large, cleared space, Kisame watched with a critical eye, knowing all too well what's going to happen. Along with Professor Flitwick erected a simple shield around the two, ensuring that no hexes or curses struck the observers. Neville and Ron stepped to the side. Kisame was furious. If that Potter brat hurt his Haru, he would personally torture the boy. Nervous whispers and excited giggles were heard throughout the room. Confringo. Bombarda. Expelliarmus. Jacob sent a string of strong, harmful hexes at Haru, and watched in disbelief as the girl simply stepped aside and let them pass harmlessly into the safety shield. Bombarda. Bombarda. Tarantellegra. Confringo. Once again, Haru simply moved out of the way, gracefully bobbing and weaving as if dancing. She had yet to utter a word, but she was clearly winning. White-hot rage began to blank Jacob, hearing as he watched the girl who made his family a laughing stock evades his curses as if they were thrown in slow motion. How the hell is she doing that? Fight back, you little prick. What, are you just going to dance all night? I thought this was a duel, not ballet class. He conjured two heavy, wooden swords, the type used when training at swordplay. Keeping one in his left hand, he tossed the other at Haru's feet. If you can't fight with magic, we'll fight with swords. Either way, I will be kicking your ass today. Now fight, you little coward. Ron laughed loudly in support of Jacob, his worried blue eyes belying his mocking expression. Haru was not behaving as she should be. Everyone knew that Jacob Potter was the best, due to the fact he is the boy who lived. Haru should be terrified. Instead, she was completely unfazed, almost unconcerned, and still unhurt. Kisame watched Haru with delight. Once again, his little princess was showing depths no one had suspected. The fact that Jacob Potter was Haru's brother was amazing. Two people could not be less similar than Jacob and Haru. Haru cocked her head to the side, considering Jacob's taunt, then said, very well. Haru held her left hand out to the side, extending her arm as far as it would go. Jacob and Ron focused on that hand, wondering what Haru was doing as she shook it and wiggled it in a most bizarre fashion. Weird, that looked like a rabbit. Now a bird. A dog? Just as Jacob was about to demand to know what Haru was doing, Jacob uttered a high-pitched shriek and recoiled in shock, dropping his wand as he raised his hands urgently to his face. He forgot he was holding the sword. Silence fell over the students and teachers as Jacob Potter knocked himself out without Haru Peverell having voiced a single curse. Ron stared open-mouthed as his best friend hit the floor, heavy wooden sword clattering behind him and blood running from his broken nose. What the hell? Akio wand, Haru said quietly. Jacob's wand slapped into Haru's still outstretched hand. Kisame stood still, completely stunned at the elegant manner in which his little princess had defeated the Potter brat. Gathering his thoughts, he called out, Haru Chime Takina Habi Peverell is the winner. Slytherin House erupted into proud applause, joined by Ravenclaw and Neville Longbottom. Kisame watched as Professor Flitwick took down the shield and walked up to Haru, congratulating her on her win in an honor duel. Kisame smiled as he walked over to her and taking a deep breath in reaction as he was fixed in the bright green gaze. Holding out his hand, he felt Haru's small hand close in his in a congratulatory shake. Kisame smiled a shark-like smile and said, "How did you get him to do that?" Haru grinned up at him. "Mischief is hidden in the emerald depths," and said somewhat impishly, distracted him with shadow puppets and sent a tickling charm up his nose. Kisame blinked down at the surprising little princess who won his heart along with the rest of the Akatsuki. "Brilliant." A groan from the floor brought their attention back to Jacob Potter. The Gryffindor was slumped against Ron Weasley, blood running from his nose as he groggily pushed aside the conjured wooden sword and struggled to his feet. Blinking around in confusion, it took a moment for him to process what had happened. When it hit, he whirled around in rage and glared at Haru, who for some reason was holding the Sharkmon's hand. You little cheater. I demand a rematch." Hermione shook her head in dismay. Haru had won fair and square. Jacob was just making things worse by behaving so immaturely. His father was going to kill him. Haru simply raised one eyebrow and said, "Under the rules of dueling for members of the same blood, I lay claim to all of your possession within 1 mile of this location." And as Jacob gaped, his belongings began to flash into the field, piling up at and around the feet of Haru. He jumped in shock as the robe he was wearing ripped itself off him and soared to Haru, followed by a shirt, ties, trousers, and boots. Jacob was left standing in the middle of the field wearing his glasses and a pair of bright red boxers with golden snitches. His thoughts moved sluggishly as he struggled to understand what was happening. A familiar, silvery cloak appearing in Haru's arms shocked Jacob into full alertness as he leapt forward to retrieve the Potter family invisibility cloak. "No, those are my belongings. What the hell? Give them back, thief." Professor Snape simply gazed down at the petite girl who beat the Potter brat and knocked him down a few pegs or two. He ignored Jacob's ranting and Ron's shouts when Professor Flitwick said the rules of dueling, in which a duel held by people of the same blood or family lines resulted in the winner claiming all of the loser's belongings within a certain range. He ignored the manner in which Jacob tried to claim unfairness, and how he was reminded of the extensive steps Haru had taken to ensure Jacob knew the rules. Instead, Professor Snape simply watched his little Haru, enjoying the slight, happy smile as she examined her new belongings with Kisame, who was making quick notes of everything that Haru now owned, including several new sets of clothing, a new trunk, books, a nice potion set, a luxurious comforter, a heavy money bag filled with galleons, the newest Nimbus 2000 broom, a folded piece of parchment with an odd magical signature, several sets of dragonhide boots, a bewildered house elf and an extraordinary invisibility cloak. And he did not miss the subtle look of deep satisfaction in the green eyes. Meanwhile at Tsuna, Gaara stared blankly down at the letter in his hand. It was from a place called Hogwarts, sent to him by someone named Orochimaru Takina Habib Peverell. He had yet to open it. "This may be an attempt on my life or a trap," thought Gaara. "Open it." Shukaku sounded excited for some reason. Honestly, he seemed to brighten when Gaara revealed the name. Which is quite odd, as Shukaku doesn't exactly brighten in any way. He just cackles and growls. "Open it, brat." Shukaku barked loudly when Gaara failed to complete his request. Gaara winced, with his free hand flying up to his head. Letting out a sigh while running one of his hands through his hair, Gaara ripped the letter open with ease, swiftly pulling out the piece of parchment and discarding the envelope. So far so good, no traps. Perhaps he really did just get a letter, although Gaara didn't sure why it would come to him. He does not know anyone in Hogwarts, and nobody in Hogwarts should know him. He was hoping it would stay that way until the Chunin exams. Father would be most unhappy if his plan was foiled due to a letter. Shaking his head, Gaara carefully and slowly unfolded the letter just in case anything, was released. When nothing came out, Gaara let out a break of air, relaxing slightly. It hadn't caught on fire or exploded. He couldn't smell or sense any form of poison in the air. As far as they can tell, there's nothing wrong with this piece of parchment, or the envelope it came in. "Hello, Gaara." That is a normal enough way to start a letter. Gaara stared at the words for a second before nodded and moving on to the first paragraph. "My name is Orochimaru Takina Habib Peverell, and I saw that you put out to get a pen pal a few years back. It's really sad that no one chose you in that amount of time, but I guess that means I'm lucky. I get to be your pen pal, yay. Anyways, I know we don't really know a lot of each other, and I hope to change that, and I was hoping we can be friends. So I'm going to tell you about myself. Gaara nearly dropped the letter as his eyes ran over those 5 words. Those 5 words he had longed to hear it. I want to be friends, is what Haru had written. She wants to be friends. They do not know about Shukaku, but they have still written him this letter. That's something, isn't it? Let's see. Well, I'm a girl. I sorta look like my dad but a female version though. But I have emerald green eyes and I have a lightning bolt scar on the right side of my forehead. I have black hair and pale white skin. Oh, did I forget to mention that I'm a pure-blooded witch and the daughter of the Godem Hokage of Konohagakure? I'm not joking that I indeed am a wand-wielding witch. You see, when I was only a baby, maybe 1 year old, my biological parents abandoned me so they can raise my twin brother, the boy who lived. So Haru is a girl. She's a wand-wielding witch. Daughter of the Godem Hokage of Konohagakure. I wonder if she'll accept Shukaku. Her life seems pretty interesting, as is she. Of course, that doesn't mean she doesn't still get scared. Perhaps this letter is all a joke. That would make the most sense. A joke. So my biological parents left me to the care of my aunt and uncle who didn't want me. They called me a freak and abandoned me and an ally in Konoha. That's where my dad Orochimaru, Chimate Takina Habi, took me in after he killed my aunt and uncle. I'm currently in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in the House of Slytherin, one of the 4 houses of Hogwarts. Hope you reply soon. Sincerely, Haru Chimate Takina Habi Peverell. The next morning in the middle of breakfast, a handsome black hawk swooped down towards the Slytherin table with a large package in its talons. Haru and her friends looked up to see Kuro flying their way, dropping the package in front of Haru, stroked Kuro's lovely black feathers, feeding him a piece of bacon. Both Neville and Blaze said, "Open it," excitedly. Well, their third male friend Theodore not just shook his head and smiled. Haru giggled as she opened her package, only for her eyes to widen when she opened her package. A Nimbus 2000. Theo exclaimed, "That's the best broom there is." Haru smiled as saw the note that left with the broom. "Sirius must be happy that I made the team and got me the broom," Haru explained. "Wanna come out and practice on it?" Haru asked her friends, who all nodded their heads. Of course, Blaze confirmed, as group darted from the Great Hall quickly and rushing down to the pitch, where Haru leapt onto the broom and took off, cheering at the ridiculously fast speed and very smooth flight. Meanwhile, back as Suna, Gaara sat at his desk, glaring down at the clean sheet of paper in front of him. Pieces of crumbled up paper surrounded him, all with at least 1 word on them. Gaara, looking at the litter around him, now realized that he had no idea how to write a letter, and that fact annoyed him greatly. Surely he could if Haru could. He'd seen Tamari and Kankuro write letters as well. They'd made it look so much easier. Gaara didn't see what was so simple about it. This was one of the hardest things he'd ever had to do. "Hello Haru. I received your letter only just yesterday." "No." Gaara shook his head, angrily, crumbling the paper up and tossing it over his shoulder. He hadn't gotten farther than a few sentences into any of these letters, but he was beginning to get frustrated. His sand was hungry for blood as a result of his harsh emotions, and he felt the sudden urge to leap into the street below and kill the first person he saw. But that would not write his letter. "Alright, let us try this again," Gaara muttered, pulling out yet another piece of paper. Tapping his pen lightly on the desk, Gaara decided to start it just as he always had. That had been the only good part of each letter, he supposed. Or maybe it wasn't all that good, but at least it sounded right. "Hello, Haru. So far so good. Your letter arrived yesterday, and I have decided I should reply. I would, in fact, enjoy being your friend. I am Gaara of the Sand, youngest son of the Case Cage." Good. I'm telling her who I am. She told me who she is. Let's see, she also told me things she likes. I should do that too. Gaara nodded to himself as though he were approving his own idea. This was the farthest he'd ever gotten in writing a letter, and he felt rather proud. He wasn't going to fail this time, surely. "I enjoy killing Pei." Stop. Gaara didn't get to finish his sentence due to the booming voice in his head. He hissed in pain as his skull seemed to vibrate, a high-pitched squeal filling his ears. "Mark it out," Shukaku ordered harshly. Gaara quickly did as he was told, not wanting Shukaku to yell again. He didn't like yelling. Good, now, if we want her to be our friend? Gaara cut Shukaku off. Our friend? Yes, our friend. Now, you need to tell her the good things about yourself. You know, charm her. Shukaku said. There's nothing good about me. Gaara's sweat dropped at the sand tanuki. The creature let out a slight growl, the noise rumbling like thunder in Gaara's mind. Okay. Tell her about me. We should be honest with her. Shukaku nodded to himself. This was good. I am the host of the demon tanuki of the sand, the Ichibi, also known as Shukaku. It seems he too wishes to be your friend. Good. Shukaku nodded in approval. Tell her that you don't sleep. Gaara blinked before reluctantly writing it down. Due to the fact that I host Shukaku, I cannot sleep for he will take over. Damn it, you made me sound like the bad guy. No matter. Write about your hobbies. Shukaku ordered harshly. My hobbies are killing people. Gaara replied slowly, not used to speaking to the sand beast in such a civilized way. Well, what do you do when you aren't killing people? Shukaku asked. Watch people, decide who to kill next, walk around and scope out the crowd. Gaara said, nodding to himself. That sounded correct. You like going on walks, put that. Shukaku decided, wondering how much he'd actually messed this kid up. I enjoy taking walks and I like the nighttime. Good, you like the nighttime. This is good, yes, good. Shukaku nodded. He hadn't written anything himself in a very long time. Gaara could only sigh. This was going to be a long morning, he assumed. With Shukaku so invested in his letter, Gaara doubted he'd get any peace and quiet anytime soon. Back at Hogwarts, Haru was treated to watching the Slytherin team run through their training practice before she was allowed on her broom, and then Flint was all over her. Peveril, let me see your quickest lap. Flint barked. Haru raised her eyebrow but kicked off, flattening herself to her broom and shooting off. She didn't bother to slow up much on the corners, using her weight to control the sharpness over her movements. Not bad, Peveril. Let's see how you fly while trying to catch things. Flint pulled out a bag of ordinary gold balls and started launching them into the air. Haru took off. Flint threw the balls in every direction and Haru pulled off some spectacular stunts, some of which she had never done before, but she didn't miss one. When she touched down next to Flint, the Slytherin captain was gaping at her. Thank you, Dad, for my early training. Haru whispered reverently. Flint eyed her with a somewhat manic glint in his eye and Haru was ever so slightly alarmed. Do I qualify? Haru wondered. Flint nodded mutely. Play like that in every game and you'll be captain soon enough. Flint told her, practice every Thursday and if you miss it you had better hope your reason changes the very foundation of magic or else. He stomped off, taking the Quidditch equipment with him, and Haru was left wondering what she had gotten herself into. She shrugged, shouldering her broom and making her way inside. Haru wanted to do some more training with Kisame, hoping she could master the water dragon and the human transformation technique to kill time. Haru was enjoying her dinner when the brat called Malfoy and his two brain-dead apes were standing in front of her. Having a last meal, Peveril? When are you getting the train back to your fellow ninjas? You're a lot braver now that you're back on the ground and you've got your little friends with you, said Haru coolly. There was of course nothing at all little about Crabbe and Goyle, but as the high table was full of teachers, neither of them could do more than crack their knuckles and scowl. Then again, they never really do help. I'd take you on any time on my own, said Malfoy. Tonight, if you want. Wizard's duel. Wands only, no contact. What's the matter? Never heard of a wizard's duel before, I suppose? If you must remember clearly, Malfoy, not a few hours ago that I completely destroyed Jacob Potter, the so-called boy who lived and humiliated him in front of the entire school. Do you wish for that same fate to happen to you? Haru said, letting out some of her killing intent as she looked at the fool. As said fool blushed and shivered in fear in remembering what happened to Potter this morning, and with that Malfoy ran from there like the scared little boy that he is. Later on that night, Haru and Kisame were sneaking into the third-floor corridor only to stop when they heard, "Sniff around, my sweet, they might be lurking in a corner." It was Filch speaking to Mrs. Norris. "They're in here somewhere," they heard him mutter, "probably hiding." Both Haru and Kisame used the tree-climbing exercise to climb on or walk on the wall to the ceiling to avoid being caught by Filch and his damn cat. Seeing when the coast was clear, they jumped down and headed towards the third corridor door. Haru pulled her wand, tapped the lock, and whispered, "Alohomora." The lock clicked and the door swung open. Both Haru and Kisame piled through it, shut it quickly, only for them to turn around only to look straight into the eyes of a monstrous dog. A dog that filled the whole space between ceiling and floor. It had 3 heads, 3 pairs of rolling, mad eyes, 3 noses, twitching and quivering in their direction, 3 drooling mouths, saliva hanging in slippery ropes from yellowish fangs. One thought ran through both Haru and Kisame minds were, what the hell? Thinking fast, Haru threw a sleeping powder bomb at the 3-headed dog, seeing that the sleeping powder was taking effect and the 3-headed dog was soon out cold when Haru looked at Kisame in shock and whispered to him, "Why is there a 3-headed dog in a school full of children?" Kisame also looked shocked and said, "I have no idea, but I will be reporting this to the Hokage. He has to know about the potential danger this could bring. Something is not right in the school, not one bit." And with both Haru and Kisame went their separate ways, while Haru went straight to the dungeons to the Slytherin common room. While Kisame went straight to his designated bedroom for the time being to report to the Hokage about this certain development that he and Haru has just discovered. Later on that night, Haru changed into her silk white kimono, carefully coaxed Ankoku off her arm and next to her pillow. "Mistress? Yes? Is something the matter? You seem a bit off. Did something happen?" "Yes, something did happen, Ankoku, something that might put the students in danger, but Kisame and I are looking into it." "Very well, mistress, just be careful." "Thank you, Ankoku, for telling. I'll be careful. Good night." "Good night, my mistress." The next morning in the Great Hall, once again Ankoku yelled in a way only snakes could about the amount of messenger hawks that came swooping into the Great Hall. When the 3 messenger hawks landed in front of her, Haru smiled and offered some bacon to the hawks. "Stupid pigeons," Ankoku mumbled. Haru rolled her eyes. "Kuro is my friend, just as you are. He won't hurt you or try to eat you. I promise. I think you both were just startled by each other." "Well, I don't like him, mistress." "You can't be his pet because you are mine." "I'm not his pet, Kuro is my pet." "Oh, well, that does make a difference. I suppose I can tolerate him then. He is just a common pet." "Ha, take that pigeon," Ankoku hissed, looking smug. Haru shook her head and chuckled as she opened one of her scrolls that was sent to her, and only to smile getting her ladder from Gaara of the Sand. Haru only giggled in reading his letter. It seems that the one-tailed Toki Shukaku was helping Gaara write this letter. Giggling once more, Haru pulled out a blank scroll and started to write her letter to Gaara. "Dear Gaara, I'm so happy that you got my letter. A lot of things have happened. I defeated my so-called brother in a duel, a wizarding duel to be exact, and he accused me of cheating, so all his belongings in a certain radius came flying towards me. So I have a lot of new things. I even got a house elf too. If you don't know what a house elf, they served wizards and witches and are usually found under the employment of old wizarding families taking residence in elaborate establishments, like mansions, and must do everything that their masters command unless they are freed. A house elf can only be freed when their master presents them with clothes. House elves have their own brand of wandless magic which, despite their small physical size, is very powerful. Other than that, I and my bodyguard from the village Kisame Hoshigaki had discovered a 3-headed dog in the 3rd floor corridor where the headmaster says that it is out of bound to students. But I wonder why a 3-headed dog being there in the first place. Other than that, I have been doing well in my classes and my studies as a kunoichi as well, but other than that it's been quite boring, so I've been writing certain poems or songs, so I'll be sending you one, but please don't laugh if you hear it or read it. Okay, hear the song I wrote, I hope you like it. It was lunch. Haru and her friends along with Kisame decided to spend some time outside in the warm sunshine. Haru and her friends were sitting beside the lake, while Ankoku was playing around in the shallow water. As for Kisame, he wanted to take a swim in the Black Lake. Haru sighed as she had her homework for the week spread out in front of her while eating her bento box lunch, while her friends were either doing their homework or eating. When a note appeared in front of them, as Haru and all her friends fought to roll their eyes at the note. Ms. Peverell, my dear, I was wondering if you might join me for a spot of tea this afternoon after you have finished lunch. Professor Albus Dumbledore. P.S. I do so enjoy ice mice. Neville asked, who's it from? Haru handed the note over, resumed doing her work. She was prepared for this. Her father had given her a heads up, she told herself. What do you think the headmaster wants with you? Neville asked after he had read the note, his voice slightly worried for his friend. Haru looked confused and shrugged her shoulders. I have no idea, she replied. Well, I wouldn't worry, you haven't done anything, Neville said before he cringed. Well, not anything too bad. You don't think it's about your argument with Ron, do you? Haru only giggled as Kisame smirked as he heard that as he was walking towards the group of children. When he thought about the confrontation with Weasley just yesterday. I know that I'm sure the headmaster just wants a chat or something. After all, he and the Potters are in big trouble with my father and my village, Haru said. He was a bit mental, Theo said after looking around to make sure he wasn't within earshot. Totally, Blaze agreed. Having finished her food, Haru stood. Well, I guess I'll see you guys later then, she said. We can wait for you if you like, Neville offered. In the library, maybe? Nodding, Haru agreed, thanks, that would be great. After giving the ridiculous password to the gargoyle guarding the headmaster's office, both Haru and Kisame walked up the steps and knocked, not entering until they heard Dumbledore call out. Headmaster, Haru greeted as she entered. Haru, my dear, welcome, do take a seat, Albus said, his voice affectionate and grandfatherly. Both ninjas knew it was just an act. Had Haru did not know what a manipulative old coot he was, she could have easily believed that he really was just a kind, old man. Thank God for her father had taught her how to read someone's true nature. Taking a seat while Kisame was standing behind her, Haru looked at the headmaster. You wanted to see me, sir? She said. Yes, nothing to worry about though, my dear, Dumbledore replied. I just wanted to have a chat with you, see how you were faring. Haru fought not to roll her eyes. But Kisame he just rolled his eyes at the headmaster. I'm fine, thank you, sir, Haru said softly. Only for the office doors opened there stood Jacob Potter stepped forward, trying, and failing, to look earnest and ashamed, and cleared his throat. Forgive me for interrupting the both of you. His smile was more like a grimace than anything. I have done a lot of thinking and wish to express my apologies for everything I have done against Haru. My behavior was inappropriate, please forgive me. Smiling with false humility, Jacob did his best to infuse the key phrase with magic, as he'd been taught. Watching her so-called brother, Haru randomly wondered if Dumbledore's apparent constipation was spreading, because Jacob certainly looked like he was suffering from it. Albus watched in approval, pleased that Jacob had memorized his lines so perfectly, and sent a wink over at the corner where James and Lily Potter huddled beneath a disillusionment charm. He could almost feel James's agitation at having to use such a charm instead of the vaunted Potter family invisibility cloak. If Jacob played his part properly, that cloak would be back in Albus's, James's, control within the hour. Jacob, however, was losing a little confidence under the combined threat of two dispassionate stares. Haru's two bright green eyes were creepy enough, but when they were accompanied by the bloody stare of her bodyguard, it was hard to take. Still, he had been coached well and knew what he had to do. He had to do this right or face the consequences of losing his birthright to a slimy snake. Headmaster Dumbledore had promised him that the powerful old wizard could certainly outwit the Slytherin and set things right. And everyone knew that Dumbledore was the greatest wizard since Merlin himself. Confidence rising again, he focused on the part he had to play and plastered a pleading look on his face. Haru did not need the warning squeeze Kisame gave, but she appreciated it all the same. Really, it was almost insulting that anyone could believe this wasn't completely transparent. Offering a small, chilly smile that her big sister Anko taught her. She said impassively, specifically, Mr. Potter, for what do you request forgiveness? Jacob offered a blank stare as he tried to improvise. Dumbledore and his parents didn't cover this. What had he done that was so wrong? Well, the duel, I suppose, he offered uncertainly. Was that one of the things Haru expected to hear? Haru raised one eyebrow mockingly. Not sure, Jacob? What, exactly, are you apologizing for with regard to, the duel, as you call it? Humor me. Jacob tried to keep from scowling, but his voice showed his irritation as he rushed the words to get them out before they could choke him. Well, I probably should have planned the duel better. He realized that maybe he'd given away a little too much information to the avid listeners. They had needed witnesses for when Haru retracted Jacob's penalties, but he had to be careful to control what was revealed. Was it possible for a bloodthirsty stare to carry ice chips? Because the look of Haru's bodyguard was aiming at him had Jacob shivering, and that was before the intimidating man said softly, I give you a troll on that response, Mr. Potter. If I was a teacher but I could tell you still haven't learned to do adequate research for your assignments, have you? Kisame said while glaring at the fat boy. Dumbledore shifted worriedly, clearly understanding the message. That Ms. Peverell's bodyguard was unquestionably onto their tactics. He thought viciously. Perched on his bony shoulder, Fox suddenly decided it was a grand time to sink his beak into Albus's hair and start plucking. Albus tried to shoo the determined bird away, knowing that the damn thing would soon be drawing blood. Honestly, why anyone would think being a master to a phoenix was a blessing was beyond him. They were annoying, overgrown featherheads most of the time. Wincing at another hard tug on his scalp, he tried to focus on the scene by the doors, and thus missed the new deposit of hawk seahawk that dripped down the back of his mustard yellow and baby poo green robes. Confused, Jacob just shifted his weight and tried to pull the conversation back to the script he had been given. Anyway, oh, after all, we may be cousins. When all is said and done, we are family. He stared hopefully at Haru, mentally urging her to recite the next line. He was disappointed. Haru raised her eyebrows and said mockingly, "You already said that, Jacob." Once again, Jacob found himself staring blankly as he tried to think for himself without hopelessly screwing this up. He was in a quandary because of his parents, and the headmaster had all sternly warned him to not deviate and not lose his temper. Hard to do when Haru Peverell refused to cooperate and was seriously pissing him off. Producing a very fake laugh, Jacob offered his number 4 crooked grin and hand-mussing hair combo and said, "Well, I know for certain I shouldn't have dueled you. I apologize for that. Do you forgive me?" Damn it, it was essential to get Haru to say the words. Haru was uncooperative. "Jacob, there was nothing at all wrong with you dueling me." "Why would you think so? It is, after all, an acceptable wizarding practice in settling disputes. Legal and everything." The blank look was becoming a habit by this time. "Well, I lost. So, yeah, I'm sorry about that." He couldn't quite keep from glaring. Haru's smile was still chilly. "And if you had won?" Dumbledore shifted urgently, trying to catch Jacob's attention before he mucked this up. Too late. "Of course not," Jacob snapped incredulously. "Obviously. Who would be sorry to win a duel?" Kisame looked like he was carved in marble. "Of course not, indeed, Mr. Potter. Your only regret in any of this is that your cousin bested you. You have no understanding at all regarding your faults and failings. Perhaps you could simply speed this up and tell us specifically what you are trying to accomplish here? False apologies aside, of course. And to make it quick, Haru needs to get to class." Kisame said in a bored tone. Drawing a deep breath, he tried the grin, hair tug combo again and said the most important line of the script, infusing as much magic as he could into the words. "Will you pardon my transgressions?" He amped up the charm in his smile and gazed imploringly at the Basta. His cousin, hands disarmingly open. Emerald eyes should never be so cold and unemotional. And the bloodthirsty stare was even scarier that way. In the hushed moments, as the twin glares focused on him like icy lasers, Jacob was certain that he would rather be standing this close to a Dementor than to these two. No. With that single word, Kisame and Haru turned to leave the headmaster's office. Unable to keep up the act, Jacob's expression morphed to frustrated rage as he seized Haru's shoulder to pull the girl to face him and shouted, "What the fuck do you mean, no? Why the hell not?" The hand gripping Haru's shoulder clenched hard as Jacob's rage allowed him to force angry magic through his grip into the smaller girl's skin and muscles. He tightened his grip even further and shook his wand into his other hand, preparing to strike and somehow force the little bitch to comply. Within half a second of Jacob Potter touching Haru, Kisame swung his sword at the little prick's neck, trapping him agent's door. Seizing Potter's thumb and bending it back as he forcibly removed the enraged boy's hand from the princess, Kisame kicked the brat in the stomach hard, causing Jacob to cough up blood. "Don't ever touch the princess again, you little piece of shit," Kisame said as he turned towards Dumbledore and glared and said in the darkest voice he can muster, "I'll make sure the Hokage hears about this." And with that, both Haru and Kisame leave the headmaster's office. Time skip. After the confirmation in the headmaster's office, Kisame went back to the abandoned classroom to write his report and inform the Hokage about what happened, and hoping to see that the Potters get another fine for attacking the princess. Haru sighed as she was walking the long way to the Slytherin dungeons, so she could read the letter she got from Gaara earlier that morning. Haru tried to dispel her anger. Lost as she was in her darkest thoughts, Haru barely stopped herself from colliding with a dark figure. Looking up, Haru nervously met the eyes of Professor Snape. "I'm sorry, sir," she said. "I was not paying attention to where I was going." "Clearly," Snape said, his drawling voice. "You should take care to pay attention, Ms. Peverell." "Yes, sir," Haru said, standing awkwardly in front of the man. "It is, however, fortunate for you that I had need of your presence," Snape said. "I have almost finished brewing the scar ointment that your father requested for you. If you come by my office after dinner tonight, it shall be ready for collection." "Thank you, sir," Haru replied. "It is of no matter," Snape said before he continued down the corridor, his black robes billowing. Haru, reeling that conversation had calmed her somewhat, quickly made her way to the common room. Gathering a few extra pieces of parchment and a few quills, Haru reunited with her friends. Haru spent the afternoon in the library, reading Gaara's letter while her friends worked on their homework. "Dear Haru, getting married sounds good. Shukaku thinks it is a good idea as well. Then, neither of us will be alone. Also, I really like your song. I could only wish I could hear it for reals." From Gaara. Like arranged, Haru made her way to the dungeons after dinner, Neville bravely offering to go with her. Smiling Haru had waved him off. Haru had received a note during dinner with directions to Snape's office. Reaching it, Haru was fascinated to see that the portrait guarding it was of a young man sitting on a basilisk. After checking it out, she eventually asked the portrait to inform the professor she was here. "You may enter," the portrait said, opening the door for Haru. Deciding to take a chance, Haru quietly slipped into Parseltongue, "Thank you." The portrait started and stared at Haru intently as she passed. Entering the office, Haru looked around in mild curiosity. She had never been inside her head of house office. "Surprised at the lack of coffins and blood?" came Snape's drawling voice. There was a slight challenge in there that Haru picked up on, though what he was challenging, Haru didn't know. Haru turned to the sound and smiled slightly. "No sir, everybody knows that you keep the coffins and blood in your personal rooms. It's the chains and whips you keep here," Haru risked joking. Snape seemed to freeze before his mouth twitched slightly. "And I thought I had hidden that so well," he drawled. Haru giggled and, after a beat of silence, said, "Thank you, sir, for making my ointment." "As I have said, Ms. Peverell, it is of no consequence," he said, reaching into his robes and pulling out a metal vial. "When you are running low, inform me and I shall make more before you run out." Haru nodded and left. Meanwhile at Tsuna, "Dear Gaara, is one of us supposed to send a ring? Did you know that we had to kiss when we get married? Kissing seems nice. Do you want to kiss? I would not mind. I am sending a picture of myself. You should send one too. Love, Haru." Gaara looked at the letter with cold, calculating eyes. "Do I open it?" he questioned, turning it over in his hands. "You really don't have to ask every fucking time you get a letter, Gaara." Shukaku sighed. This boy would be the death of him. "Okay," the boy voiced, carefully pulling it open. He liked to save the envelopes and letters so he could read them again later. They were very special to him. Very special indeed. He couldn't let anything happen to them, and he couldn't let anyone else read them either. The first thing Gaara pulled out was the letter. Haru's handwriting was so neat, unlike his own, which came out wobbly. She had never complained about it though. He read her every word carefully, and twice too. Kissing sounded very nice. It made him happy. And Haru was right, he needed to get her a ring. "You kids are moving too fucking fast, I swear to God." Shukaku shook his head. "We are in love," Gaara told him. "Yes, I'm sure that's what this is." He grumbled. Haru was only 11 and Gaara, 12. Both acted a little old for their age, but that didn't, technically, make them any older. "Then I should make her my girlfriend first?" Gaara asked quietly. "Yes, perfect. You scared me there for a second. I thought you had no common sense." Shukaku wanted them together, but not too fast. Like sweet Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. Gaara nodded absent-mindedly, reading the letter again. She said love at the end. He mentally said to himself, feeling flustered. "Wait, picture?" Gaara all but ripped the envelope open, yanking the small photograph out. It had obviously been taken by someone else or the help of her magic. Haru sat on her bed, a small smile on her face. She was making a peace sign, but her kimono sleeves were so long you could only see the top halves of her 2 fingers. A blush grew on Gaara's face. "She is cute. Like a baby dog," Gaara decided. "A puppy," Shukaku corrected. "That is what I said." The redhead responded. Ah, of course. My bad. Shukaku scoffed sarcastically but was ignored. Gaara was far too busy staring at the picture. Her large, doe emerald green eyes seemed so innocent and so secretive. Long black raven hair, her petite body reminded him of a small animal, and it made him want to hold and protect her. He'd never felt like this before, but maybe that's because he'd never met someone interested in him. As a teenage boy, he had hormones and wants. He wanted someone to love. A girlfriend, like all the heroines in the books he read. Someone he could protect and hug without them flinching away. Someone he could smile with. Someone like Haru. What the fuck, Romeo? You're 12, calm the fuck down, hun. Meanwhile, back with Haru. Haru rose with the sun and smiled as she left a note for Daphne, telling her friend where she went. She then went downstairs after getting dressed in her training outfit and left the common room to head outside. She ran into the caretaker and smiled as she wished him a good morning. The caretaker blinked in shock as Haru then headed outside and began to stretch for about 10 minutes. She then started running and did laps for about an hour to an hour and a half around the castle. Seeing the time, Haru decides to head back to the castle while wiping her feet on the mat outside. Filch watched in surprise as Ms. Norris walked forward to examine the new first year, and Haru noticed the cat and grinned and knelt as she then softly called, "Here, kitty, kitty, kitty." Ms. Norris was surprised as she came closer and got a delightful scratch behind her ears and a few temptation kitties treat from the gentle student. Filch watched as the girl then stood and smiled as she said, "See you later, kitty. I have to go take a quick shower and get ready." Haru ran off as Filch gave a tiny smile when he called Ms. Norris so they could do their rounds. Haru smiled as she entered her dorm room. She snuck into Daphne's room. Once inside, she gently woke Daphne and said, "Daphne, you better get ready for the day before we head off to breakfast." Daphne sat up with a yawn and smiled at her friend after she was more awake. Daphne then got up and got her stuff ready as the two girls headed into the bathroom to shower. Daphne and Haru joked from their stalls as they showered, then quickly got ready for the day. Haru grinned as she helped herself to a bowl of rice and miso soup along with broiled fish. Only to stop eating when she saw Kuro flying their way, dropping off her letter in front of Haru while she stroked Kuro's lovely black feathers, feeding him a piece of bacon. "Dear Haru, Shukaku believes we should date first. What do you think?" "I believe he is correct, and that is the natural order of things, but I have no problems with marriage. I will send a picture of myself in my next letter. I must obtain a camera. You are very cute. I will cherish this photograph. Love, Gaara." Haru smiled as she began to write some letters, one for Gaara and another back home to her family. Once done writing, Haru tied the letters and some small seal scrolls to Kuro's leg. The scrolls were filled with some wizarding candy for her family to try, while Gaara got some chocolate frogs. The hawk nuzzled his mistress' cheek, then took to the skies. Only for everyone in the hall to jump in shock when they heard Kisame let out a loud screech, falling from his hiding spot. "It's on me," he shrieked loudly, his limbs flailing about as he squirmed in attempts to get the cat, who happens to be Ms. Norris, off his face. Ms. Norris hissed in retaliation, earning more screams from Kisame. "Oh no, Kisame, I'll save you, and no, kitty, Kisame isn't food," Haru said as she jumped and tackled Ms. Norris off of Kisame, who jumped away immediately. "Dear Gaara, I patiently wait to see a picture of you, and Shukaku is probably correct. I believe we should be boyfriend and girlfriend first. That means I must know more about you. So, what is your favorite food? Mine is chicken karage. What is your shoe size and your favorite season? I have a size 6 in women's, and I like winter. Your girlfriend, Haru." Gaara rarely left his room, and when he did, it was to go to the bathroom. He mostly left through the window, and he never went in the living room or the kitchen during the day. These facts brought comfort to both Tamari and Kankuro, who could go about their day with relative ease and minimal discomfort. Knowing Gaara was in the house was always a bit, well, it put them on edge, to say the least. So when he entered the living room looking like hell on wheels, you can bet they were a little scared. Messy hair and a glare plastered on his face, he stalked over to them. They didn't move to stand up from the couch, their eyes wide. The quips that emerged from the comedy TV show on the television filled the tense space as their younger brother stopped in front of them. He looked between this, almost as though trying to decide which one he should kill first, and the two siblings knew this had to be the end for them. Any moment now, a tidal wave of sand would crash down on them, crushing their bones and organs hopefully quickly. I need a camera. Kankuro screamed in surprise when he spoke while Tamari could only stare, dumbfounded. Meanwhile, 5 days later. Kuro barked as he entered the Hokage office through the open window. Orochimaru just blinked as a smile formed on his face. He quickly summoned his family along with the members of the Akatsuki as Kuro held out his leg to his mistress's father. Orochimaru quickly untied the letter and scrolls. One was from Haru while the other was from Kisame. Orochimaru smiled as he opened Haru's letter first as he began to read the letter out loud. Dear Father, Kabuto, Anko, cute little brother Naruto and all the members of Akatsuki. I am ever so pleased with the chosen house, of course, Father, I know you told me it doesn't matter but please, I am not a child and I know what is expected out of me as the clan heiress. I promise to make all of you proud. I must say that the food was satisfactory Father, so please don't start fussing. I especially enjoyed the yokon the Hogwarts house elves prepared for dessert, although it doesn't come close to comparing with big sister Anko's special dango, which I must say I already dearly miss. I'm getting a little bit homesick at times but I know I'll see you at winter break soon enough. I sent you guys some wizarding treats in the scroll along with a picture of me and my new friends for everyone. I miss you and love you guys. I am afraid that I must end the letter here, as it is rather late. I hope to hear from you soon, as I already miss you all so much. Love, Haru. P.S. Father, please do send me some of Anko's special dango. And some ramen from Ichiraku. I'm drooling just thinking of them. Also, Snape-sensei and my friends send greetings to everyone. Just look how polite she is, Orochimaru said proudly after reading the first line. Naruto, on the other hand, wasn't as happy. I'm not little, he exclaimed. Neither cute, he continued with a blush that made him seem just like that in his family's eyes though, wisely, they decided to refrain from commenting on it. As they read that Haru was sorted into Slytherin, after all, she was going to become the next Snake Sanin. Naruto going as far as whooping in joy seeing that his sister was sorted in what he thought of as the coolest house at Hogwarts. Orochimaru was also proud of reading the next paragraph and knowing that Haru, despite her young age, already knew how the pure-blooded society worked thanks to her dog father's teaching her. Though he couldn't help being a little sad at his daughter's lost naivete. Orochimaru quickly returned to reading the parchment only to have Naruto, who had been reading ahead, blow into laughter a moment later. Curious as to what made his son laugh so, he let his eyes slid over the letter only to have a smile of his own appearance. After they finished the letter, everyone was visibly more calm than before, all wearing content expression now that they knew their beloved Haru was okay. As they continued to discuss the letter, after ordering the food that Haru asked for. But only for their mood drop when they read Kisami's report. Oh my god, what are we going to do? Deidara stressed, waving his hands about in a slightly panicked sort of way. What the fuck? We need to send 2 more people to look after her. Hidan folded his arms over his chest. TCH, no. Sasori scoffed at the Jushinist like he was an idiot. She needs to have 3 people watch over her, brat. Who the fuck are you calling a brat? Hidan yelled. Silence. Pain boomed, slamming his hands down onto the table. He was worried for Haru, of course. Sure, she was strong, and this was only an S rank according to Kisami's letter, but, well, she was just so grown up all of a sudden. They needed to make sure nothing went wrong. I'm sure Kisami's capable of taking care of her on his own. Kakuzu wasn't too sure. Kisame was. Kisame, and he didn't know how to deal with people who are trying to scam them. Of course, he isn't. Itachi nearly rolled his eyes. Kisame spent too much time with Haru, especially when she was younger. What now? Konan asked smoothly, her face calm, and her posture normal as ever. As though this wasn't a big deal. Dealing with a manipulated headmaster, the Potters who are trying to scam her from her winning from the duel, and let's not forget that she's in a castle surrounded by boys. White Zetsu said coolly. Everyone stared at him silently. A castle surrounded by boys? Send all of us. Konan turned to Orochimaru. No, we have other things to do. We have to count on Kisame, and I'll send one other. Orochimaru scowled. He didn't like this, not one bit. Toby wants to go. Toby threw his hand up in the air. We need someone to protect Haru-chan, Deidara hit him over the head, a tick mark appearing on his forehead. Send Itachi, Kakuzu grumbled, counting a stack of ones. Maybe we should send you. Since you seem so interested. Sasori was emotionless, yes, but that didn't stop him from being sarcastic. Fuck, just send me. Hidan shouted, his eyes wide. Orochimaru's eyes swept over the members. Haru's mission would last at least 7 years, and she'll be able to come back home over summer and winter break. So he had to pick someone with no truly important mission scheduled. Someone strong and responsible. Someone who was going to protect Haru with their life. Honestly, Itachi did seem like the best option. He was extremely powerful, but he did have many missions set for him, most of which couldn't be moved or given to another member. Honestly, there was really only one option, and he didn't like it. I'm sending. Orochimaru paused, and the room went silent. Everyone stared at him. Tobi, Yata, everyone groaned. Black with Haru. Why is Mr. Kisame here again? Didn't I tell you to stop sneaking him in? Professor McGonagall said while she was waiting for the rest of the students to enter the classroom. Kisame? What do you mean? Haru asked innocently. She, Theo, Blaze, Neville, and Daphne all stood in front of Kisame, who was currently covered in a sheet they'd stolen from one of the dorms from Slytherin common room to cover him in. It only hid him from the knees off, meaning his blue feet were visible from his sandals. Kisame isn't here, Kisame said. Yeah, see, just a ghost. Theo nodded, while they tried their best not to giggle. After leaving the Transfiguration classroom, Haru decided to take a long way back so she could stop off in a bathroom to get herself somewhat cleaned up. After cleaning off, Haru finally felt good enough to go to dinner. She still wasn't as presentable as she'd like to be, but it would have to do until she took a shower. As she entered the Great Hall, she noticed McGonagall watching the doors like a hawk and saw when she let out a breath that she had seemingly been holding. Snape was there as well, and actually smirked when they locked eyes. Dumbledore smiled at her, and Quirrell was scowling, but not at her. Haru followed his gaze, and that's when she noticed that the Gryffindor table looked rather odd. There was a big space in the middle where no one was sitting, and from that space, lots of hissing could be heard. Ankoku. And he was in his true-size crossbreed of Black Mamba and Anaconda. Haru made a beeline towards the Gryffindor table, but when she got closer, that's when she heard what was going on. And another thing, you stupid vegetable, I am the deadliest snake in the world. My mistress is not evil, and Bottom isn't going dark, and if you keep saying that he is, I will bite you. Ankoku was commanding an audience. Gryffindors were watching the huge snake carefully as he hissed and slithered back and forth across the table. His head was raised, and it was clear that he was talking to Ron because that's who he was facing. Ron, for his part, looked pale and too scared to move. Obviously, he thought that if he did, he would strike. What is going on here? Every head whipped around to face Haru. Haru, Neville cried, what happened to you? Mistress, my patience with the carrot is almost at an end. He yelled at Bottom and told him to take me over to where I belong. He also said that you were a stupid evil Slytherin and that Bottom is going dark. I may have to start rethinking my vegetable intake. Ronald, I advise you to keep your false accusations to yourself. In case you haven't noticed, Ankoku can understand English, and your comments about Neville and myself have nearly caused you to be bitten. Do yourself a favor and keep quiet. Haru said sternly. But you're a slimy Slytherin. You're trying to, Ron screamed as Ankoku lunged at him. He fell out of his seat and landed on the floor on his back. Thankfully, Ankoku was only threatening Ron and had no intention of actually biting him. If he had really wanted to though, he could have easily got him when he hit the floor. I warned you, Haru said as Ron glared up at her. Ankoku, come to me. I don't want to take a chance of someone shooting a spell at you. Still hissing as loud as he could, Ankoku complied. He slithered over to his mistress and disappeared in her robe sleeve. Are you alright? Haru asked as she looked at Neville. Neville just laughed and nodded. I haven't had a problem until just a few minutes ago, Neville said. Ron had actually been trying to talk to me all day. He was trying to warn me about you being evil, but he didn't know Ankoku was around until we walked in for dinner. That's when Ron started yelling. He laughed. That's also when I finally lost my patience, Ankoku added. If that stupid carrot would stop talking bad about you and pay more attention to his homework, he wouldn't have gotten a T on his charms paper. Whatever all that means. A T on his paper? Haru asked. Neville laughed. He understands a lot, doesn't he? Earlier, Ron was complaining to us that he got a T in charms. What did that stupid snake say about my homework? Ron yelled. "That if you stopped worrying about me and what I'm doing, and paid more attention to your studies, you wouldn't get bad marks." Ron glared at them before stomping to the far end of the table. He sat down in a huff and began piling food onto his plate. "Stupid vegetable," Ankoku grumbled. Haru just giggled as walked back to her house table. "Pull out the latest letter from Gaara. Dear Haru, I have enclosed a picture of me inside. I hope it is satisfactory. I like bread and my shoes are a size 8. I like winter as well. It is slightly cooler. I also like collecting and maintaining tiny cacti. What do you like to do? Your boyfriend, Gaara." Haru reread the letter 3 times. She nodded to herself as though agreeing to thought before carefully folding the letter once more, sliding it back into the envelope exactly as she'd found it. However, she pulled something else out. A photograph. Haru brightened at the sight of Gaara's slightly confused face, as though he weren't sure how to work the camera. He was cute. Very cute. With red hair darker than Sasori's own and 2 mesmerizing seafoam green eyes, she knew she hadn't made a mistake in choosing her first boyfriend at her age. Gaara seemed genuinely nice, and she liked nice people. Sure, the boy had some issues. Today was a good day, Haru thought. Next morning, Haru sat at the breakfast table eating her omelette and drinking her milk, completely oblivious of the fact that she was being watched so closely. She had decided to catch up on her herbology reading this morning and try to find a way to dumb down her essay that she had to write for it. Ankoku was, as always, sitting in front of her plate, but this morning he seemed to be restless over something because he was slithering back and forth across the table. Lowering her book slightly and looked at him. "Ankoku, are you all right?" Haru asked. "Mistress, where is Pigeon?" he asked, stopping briefly to look at her. It seemed that he had been waiting for her to notice his distress. "He is still out delivering the letter I told you about it. I suspect he won't be back for a few more days." "Why, are you worried about him?" "Of course not," he said with a huff. "It's been rather quiet without that haughty feather duster coming in here every morning to steal your breakfast." "I see," Haru said with a slight chuckle and went back to reading her herbology book. A few minutes passed, and Ankoku continued to slither back and forth in front of her. After another minute or so, however, his head popped up over the top of the book and he peered at her with concern in his eyes. "Mistress, do you think Pigeon is all right?" Haru suppressed a giggle, but she couldn't stop the grin from breaking out on her face. "Yes, my dear, I do think Kuro is all right. He is a smart hawk. He will be back soon." "All right," Ankoku said as he let out a sigh. A few moments later the owls arrived to deliver the morning mail. Both of them looked up to see if Kuro had returned, but when there was no black hawk to be seen, Ankoku sighed again and continued his pacing. However, just as Ankoku began to ask another question, an old brown barn owl literally fell out of the air and almost landed on him. He began hissing angrily, but the owl paid him no mind as it rolled over and hopped up, sending a plate of toast crashing to the floor as it did so. It dropped the red envelope it was carrying, and immediately took off again. Haru stared at the letter confused, but Ankoku started hissing at it. "Mistress, that letter is moving. Are you in danger? Shall I bite it?" "No, Ankoku, it's just a howler. Remember what we learned from my dog father," Haru said as she reached out to open it. "Oh, and Kisame, you may want to cover your ears." Kisame, who was standing behind Haru, warily placed his hands over his ears. Though he was expecting something noisy, he still fell to his knees in pain when a loud, obnoxious voice filled up the room. Haru, upon seeing one of her future husband's plights, made a shadow clone who immediately rushed over and wrapped her own arms around Kisame's head to further muffle the amplified screaming. "What is a howl?" Haru Orochimaru Takina Habi. The howler bellowed in a shrieking woman's voice. "It's a banshee!" Ankoku cried when the howler paused for a moment, and he dived under Haru's herbology book to try and get away from the noise. "How dare you tell that bloody snake of yours to attack my son? My boy Ron Weasley is a good boy, and if I find out you or your snake have attacked him again, you won't like the consequences." Haru had had enough of the woman's rude and obtrusive screaming and stood up because of that woman. Kisame was in pain. She calmly pulled her wand out and began waving it around the howler. The air around it became frigid and the howler began to freeze solid. The screaming stopped, but the heat from the vibrating howler was causing it to melt, so she surrounded the thing in a small block of ice and it fell to the table with a loud clunk. Then she levitated it and forcefully sent it flying into the solid stone wall in the back of the great hall, where it exploded into 1,000 pieces in one of the corners. Hesitantly Kisame uncovered his ears. Both were incredibly angry. Kisame because this bitch was screaming at his future wife, and Haru because Molly had actually caused pain to Kisami's sensitive ears. "Are you okay?" Haru asked. She walked up to Kisame. Kisame sighed and shook his head as if trying to clear it. "Yeah, though my ears will probably be ringing for a while." "You?" Haru scowled at the pile of ice at the end of the hall, all that remained from the offensive message. "Oh, I'm perfect, but she won't be once I send my reply." The entire hall was dead silent and staring at them, but Haru and Kisame ignored them and looked over at the Gryffindor table. Ron was red in the face and scowling at her, but his brothers were looking at her in awe with their mouths hanging open before they turned and grinned at each other. Haru just raised an eyebrow at Ron before smoothing out her robes and calmly sitting back down. 10 pp points to Slytherin Ms. Pp Peverell. Quirrell called out loudly. Excellent work. Thank you, Professor. Haru replied, slightly nodding her head in acknowledgement, and Quirrell chuckled. Snape half smirked, half scowled in her direction. McGonagall stared at her wide-eyed, but Dumbledore just shook his head and looked at her. Haru ignored the headmaster, just like she had been doing for the last few days. "Mistress, you silenced the banshee?" Ankoku asked as popped out of his hiding spot. "Yes, I did. It was rather rude and I didn't appreciate it. I could have disposed of the howler without the pomp and flair, but I wanted to prove a point." "I think you made a very good point. You made the banshee explode. Does the carrot belong to the banshee?" "He looks angry," he asked. Haru nodded. "Yes, he does. I will bite him," he said in a huff, as he glared over in Ron's direction. Haru just laughed and kept on reading her herbology book.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.